Three, two, one.
Hello, everybody, to another episode of Franchise Deep Dive with Jake and Josh, the podcast where we break down, dissect, and discuss all of your favorite and least favorite movie franchises. I'm Jake.
And I'm Josh.
And today, we bring you guys the first part in a two-part series covering quite possibly the best franchise that we've discussed on this podcast thus far. Sorry,
Hold
Matrix.
tight, Spider Monkey.
Get out of here, Matrix. Get out of here, Harry Potter, because we have vampires.
Happy New Year to everybody, right?
Oh, yeah. Happy New Year. Happy New Year, guys. We are now in 2025. I hope you guys had a pretty good 2024. If you didn't, then you know what? It's a new year. New you. You got those New Year's resolutions. Start checking them off, being a better you, the best you could be. Or if you had a great 2024, just keep on keeping on. But yeah, Happy New Year's, guys. I hope you guys have been enjoying our episodes thus far. We thought that a very fun franchise to kick off the new year with is Twilight. And I don't know. I think this might have been my suggestion. I don't think it was yours.
No, it definitely was yours, but I'm happy you did. This is more of a recent franchise for me. I know we're probably going to talk about our histories with it. Mine's going to be very light as opposed to yours, I feel like. But yeah, I mean, did you want to get into that or anything else to preface the episode?
No. So if you guys are wondering, like I said, this is part one of a two-part series we're doing. If you're new to this channel and you're new to our podcast, we break up franchises in different ways depending on how long it is, how long we really want to spend on it. We talked about, which is our best doing episode to date, but we talked about all four Halloween Town movies in one go around, whereas we split up the Matrix quadrilogy into two episodes. And since there are 5 Twilight movies, with the last two being a part 1 and part 2, we figured we'd start off the first episode of Twilight with just talking about the first film and its sequel, whereas next episode, which will air 2 weeks from now, we will be discussing Twilight Eclipse and Breaking Dawn part 1 and part 2. But yeah, so I guess I'll kind of go first, talk about my relationship with Twilight, and then you can divulge yours. But what happened was in 2008, Twilight hit the big screen, and I was 2008, so I was either 10 or 11. I'm not sure the exact month that it came out, but I was around 10 or 11 when Twilight kind of hit the waves. And when I was younger, I tried to tell myself that I was a bit of a ladies' man, trying to get in with the ladies. And I was like, girls really like Twilight. That's the big thing right now. There's a character named Jacob, so, it kind of works. I can be my own Team Jacob, And so not only did I watch Twilight, I read the book.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, not only did I watch Twilight, I was Twilight.
No, I am, despite the name, I am no Taylor Lautner. I am no Jacob Black. I am no Edward Cullen either, because I'm pretty sure Robert Pattinson is like a foot taller than me. But that aside, I did read the book. And not only did I read the first Twilight book, I read all 4 Twilight books.
Did you read them before you saw any of the movies?
The second, third, and fourth, yes. But I did see the first Twilight movie. That's what got me. It was a similar situation to my relationship with Dune currently, where I saw the movie and that inspired me to want to get into the books. But what started out as an attempt to get in with the ladies turned into an actual kind of love. I actually, when I was a kid, I went to Walmart and bought Twilight on DVD. And there was a week where I watched it every day. So I watched it 5 times in a row. Also, guys, as I cough, I forgot to say, I am battling a cold right now, so if I sound like Scarlett Johansson, or my voice sounds a little different this episode, I'm still on the tail end of a pretty nasty cold, and I just worked a near 60-hour work week, and I don't want to get into specifics, but where I work is a very, very cold area, less than 30 degrees, kind of cold. So
Holy shit.
Yeah, when you're battling a cold
Damn.
and you work in that kind of area, it's kind of hell, but not as much hell as watching the first two Twilight movies. But before we get into all of that, Josh, what is your relationship with Twilight?
I'll keep it very brief, Jay, because that's all it is. I haven't seen any of these movies until last year. Well, I guess we're in 2025 now. So 2023, I saw my first Twilight movie. Don't know why that I've been putting it off so long, but kind of regret not being a part of this wave of popularity. But I guess probably back then I was like, I was in 8th grade when this came out. I was just too cool for Twilight, I guess. I don't know.
I get it.
Nah.
Get it.
So yeah, not much to say, but when I first watched it, I mean, it was everything I expected it to be. It was a lot of fun.
Everything you hoped for?
Yeah, and a little bit more. Like I was quite shocked with some of the choices, definitely some of the performances, but that's something we will get into. That's all I have for you guys. I wish I had more.
Yeah, I wish I had less.
I had a question actually about like when this came out.
Yes.
I know all the girls were like really into it. Mm-hmm. Now, was this genuinely like well received from the fans of like the book readers?
Yeah.
Or was it like, or did they like it because it was like just like goofy, or did they think, oh, this is really good. This is just as good as the books.
I think a lot of like young teen females like just actually really loved it and may very well still love it. Despite what we have to say about it. Let's just say we're not the target demographic. I mean, I guess when I was 10 or 11, I was, and I fell for it. But no, yeah, and it's actually funny you ask that because I brought it up, and none of these movies are critically well received. They don't, really have great reviews from the critics. However, the critics did note that it is a pretty faithful adaptation of the novel. And with the novel almost being 500 pages, both critics, Stephanie Meyer, who wrote the novels, and a lot of the fans and whatnot felt that it was not only faithful to the novel, but it was faithful in a way where it didn't feel hamstrung to it. So it does deviate a little bit, but never in a way that it's not like Harry Potter, where there are very vast changes from the books. Same with Dune. So I guess in terms of adaptation, it quote unquote did its job. In telling the story that was written, which is funny because initially, and I guess this is a trivia fact I was kind of saving for a little bit later, but it's applicable now. But initially, this was brought to Paramount Studios, and I don't think they ended up making it because I believe it's Summit Entertainment is the actual production company that was kind of the head force production company of this series. However, when it was brought to Paramount, they wanted to change a lot of it, and I actually screenshotted what they had originally planned, and the idea was to grab more male audiences because they felt like male audiences would get bored by just the romance, which they were right. So it was also not only Paramount, but MTV Films specifically. And so they got this guy to write a script. And in this script, Bella Swan would be a long-distance runner. She would curse a lot, and she would use shotguns against vampires who killed her father.
Wow.
And also there would be a scene where there was jet skis being chased by the FBI. So needless to say, we got a very, very different movie than what they originally had planned to do.
Would that have been better, do you think?
Yes.
You think so? Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to tell. And you know what? I'm going to say I was fully into the romance in the first one, but second one, not so much. So
no, you were not.
No, not actually. But it was sure as shit more entertaining, I think, in the first one. But that's more for comparing.
In Twilight's defense, it is the greatest love story ever told, right?
Up there, that top 5.
It is everything that Neo and Trinity wanted to be.
Yeah.
But let's kind of set the stage, and then we'll get into talking about these movies. So the first Twilight, as mentioned, released in 2008, directed by Catherine Hardwicke, who, if you guys have seen the movie 13, which is a really, really shitty movie, then that's her other film. She also has a couple of other films that I have not seen. So yeah, that's Catherine Hardwicke. And I believe the screenplay was also written by a female, so kind of a female-led ensemble in terms of behind the camera. And yeah, so it also had a budget of $37 million and made a little over $408 million at the global box office. So pretty good return on investment. Jokes aside, we did kind of say that Twilight was a huge wave, and it really was. It was kind of, I don't want to say the start, because I feel Harry Potter was kind of the kickoff of the young adult sort of novels being turned into movies and that kind of phase of cinema. But Twilight definitely became massively popular for a lot of reasons. You have vampires, you have werewolves, and you have all of the teenage angst that you could possibly imagine, especially in the first film. And yeah, so I don't think there's really... Oh, I did want to do a quick cast rundown, as there's actually some pretty notable stars in this movie, and not a lot of them were stars at the time, but they would eventually become kind of bigger names. Obviously, Kristen Stewart playing the lead, Bella Swan. She's gone on to... I don't know if she won an Oscar. I think she did. I think she won for Spencer. Did she not win for Spencer?
Oh, I thought you were saying for this. I was like,
no, I don't think this got any Oscar nominations. I think it got a couple MTV Award nominations, but that's...
She was nominated for Spencer.
Okay, so nominated Robert Pattinson, who plays Edward Cullen, obviously a massive star now. He's starred in many films. He's about to be in the upcoming Bong Joon-ho film, Mickey 17. He's been in a film from... Christopher Nolan. He's become a massive star working with young and up-and-coming directors like Robert Eggers. It's
wow. He has no Oscar nominations. I thought he at least had one. That's shocking.
He should have one for The Lighthouse.
That is insane.
Easily. Yeah, it's absurd. And for those wondering, Robert Pattinson is my favorite current actor. He's my man. Oh, he's in Good Time from the Safdie brothers, which also he probably should have been nominated for. And of course, you have Taylor Lautner, Shark Boy himself, playing Jacob Black. You also have Ashley Greene, Nikki Reed, Kellen Lutz. For those wondering, Kellen Lutz is in the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, so that's fun. Anna Kendrick, who would go on to be a big star in a lot of romantic comedies, as well as Pitch Perfect. Jackson Rathbone, who plays Sokka in the Last Airbender movie from 2010. So that's kind of fun. Billy Burke, who plays Bella's father, Charlie Swan. Elizabeth Reeser, who plays Esme Cullen. If you guys are fans of Haunting of Hill House, she plays one of the characters in that. Cam Gigantit, I don't know how to say his last name, but he's in Never Back Down, which is a really bad MMA movie from the late 2000s. And the last one I'll mention, Christian Serratos, Susie Crabgrass from Ned's Declassified, making an appearance in this film, and I think all of the Twilight movies, actually. But that's really the cast I wanted to give a breakdown for. Again, a lot of them would go on to do bigger and better things. And if you guys are fans of Twilight or Robert Pattinson, you know that nobody hates Twilight more than Robert Pattinson. But yeah, let's get into the movie. Basically, there I go saying basically again. We were talking about this before. I say basically too much, guys. I'm going to try to cut that out.
And I say way too much, so I'm going to try to cut that out too.
We're trying to improve, guys. So if you hated our early episodes, we're going to get better. 2025, the year of franchise deep dive, getting better. But yeah, so Twilight, again, came out of 2008. It stars the character Bella Swan, who is a 17-year-old girl who goes and lives with her father, Charlie, in the town of Forks, Washington, where it rains 98% of the time. And when she gets there, she makes a couple of new friends, sort of. Doesn't seem like she really likes them that much, but she makes some new friends and also discovers that a boy that she has a crush on, one Edward Cullen, is a vampire. And I would talk more about the plot. There's not really a plot in these movies. You sort of have some stuff going on. And the main thing in the first one is that there are these series of killings that keep happening in Forks, and Charlie, who is, he works for the police station, they believe it to be an animal, but it's clearly not an animal, and what you find out is that it is 3 rogue vampires who are going around and killing people in Forks, Washington, and that's sort of the through line of the movie. That's kind of like what kicks off the plot. The plot really doesn't kick off until like an hour and a half into the movie. The first 90 minutes are Bella just sort of investigating, and by investigating I mean going to a bookstore and Google searching. But yeah. So that's really the plot of the movie. Let's get into it.
Do you think there's like vampires in every state like this, like just sprinkled around? Do you think it's kind of like just in a few, like how massive is the population of vampires throughout the country, do you think?
I don't know. They're definitely a minority, but I feel like there's more of them than we're led to believe.
Yeah. So, okay, where do we even start with this? So
I don't
it opens
know where
up
to begin with this movie.
Yeah. There's a lot of effort and maybe a little too much effort in camera movements in this whole movie, which I
Yes.
I know you've noticed. But
yeah.
a lot of like sweeping like pans and drones and like just like really trying to go for it, which I guess because I've seen some of the sequels, I don't want to say admire. I don't admire, but I respect it more so than I do in the later ones, because there's at least like there's some attempt to like go for like a little bit of like an artistic vision. I think they would go too far and it gets carried away, and I think it really is distracting. But they do everything possible in this movie, from like very serious conversations, and then let's just like cut in a rapid tracking shot around them in like they're like still talk. You know what I'm talking about? I think in the woods, like it's
Absolutely.
just it's all over the place. But I mean, like one of the most obvious things that you see is the color palette, and I know you're very big on this. How do you feel about the color palette in this movie?
Yeah, so I will go on record. And this is what I actually used to hate about this movie. And again, we were talking about this a little bit before recording, but I used to hate the look of the first Twilight movie, and because it just looked so not meh. It looked so icky. And now I've come to really grow to love it because, and again, I will go on record, I like the look of this movie. Now, I do agree that maybe sometimes they go a little too far in terms of like over-exaggerated camera movements and the color palette being maybe a little too much at times. However, like you said, after you watch the sequels, you really start to miss that sense of style and personality.
Yeah.
And not to say that, again, all of the creative choices in terms of the visuals are great, but again, there is that attempt to give this film its own distinct look and feel. Yeah. And one of the things that I don't know, because the color grading in this movie, it has like a very bluish tone throughout the entire movie. And something about that, combined with the fact that in Forks, Washington, like I mentioned, it rains the entire fucking movie. There's like 2 scenes where you see a little bit of sunlight, and it's only to show that vampires in this universe, they don't burn in the sun, they sparkle.
Do they? Okay, I have a question about that. Are they dying as they're like sparkling?
No.
Ever?
No.
Then I'll save it for the next movie to ask that question.
Is it, why does Edward expose himself?
Yeah,
I'll dispel that real quick. We're not jumping too far ahead, but he does it because he's exposing himself to humans, and that's cause for death in the vampire community.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not that he'll burn in the sun; it's that he's exposing himself to
non-vampires. That's a no. That's they do say.
Yeah.
We don't have many laws. That is one of them.
They have no. They say that's like the only one.
Oh, is that the only one? It's fucking crazy. You know what I find interesting? We are very opposite here. Back to Harry Potter. you hate the color palette of the sixth one, but you like the color palette here. I like the color palette of the sixth one, and I don't like it here. I don't think I hate it as much as I did when I first watched it. Because again, when you watch the sequels, you kind of it has like some level of charm, I guess. I don't think it looks good. I really don't. I don't know if it just looks like they just slapped a filter on it without really adjusting like levels that much. But it looks washed out. It looks flat. There's no like maybe it's too contrasty. I don't know. It just looks. And you could say it's what they're going for, but it looks dull, and not in like a good way. Not dull, like, I don't know. It just looks very flat to me. It looks very cheaply colored.
I think the reason that it works a little bit more for me in this movie, and obviously Half-Blood Prince is a far, far superior film to Twilight in every regard. But one thing that I don't necessarily agree with, or you didn't fully say it as a fact, but it's the saturation. Whereas this film does have a little bit of a desaturation. It's a lot more so just like a blue color grade applied to it. Whereas Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince has a heavy, heavy desaturation to it, plus a greenish brown color grade. And it makes it just, and again, I don't think a big issue for that movie is I felt like it didn't really work with the story being told. In this one, it does apply, and it applies because of probably the biggest criticism I have in this movie, other than the script and the story and the characters and the direction. And
everything about it.
The thing is, I don't think the cinematography is terrible in this movie. I think it's actually kind of decent in some parts. However, it's the editing that really ruins it. The film is horribly edited in both a sequence and scene editing perspective, whereas the film is horribly, horribly paced. And also, in scene, the editing is very jarring. It's very choppy. It looks very, very student film-esque.
It's kind of like, it's really like you said, the editing almost makes me want to say the cinematography is shit, but it's just because they do so many different things and they just want to cram it all in. Oh, we have this great shot, throw that in. Yeah, we took that shot, throw it in. It's like you got to know what to throw out. Don't just shove everything in there in the most just unnecessary scenes.
Yeah,
I don't know.
No, I agree. They definitely go too far in a lot of regards. But what I was getting at is my biggest criticism of this movie is, and all of these movies, is just how fucking melodramatic and serious these movies take themselves. It is so unintentionally goofy. And we can get into scenes of like the dialogue and can we do like a favorite melodramatic part? I don't care if you jump to the end or the middle or wherever, but do you have one that really stands out? Yeah, absolutely.
Because I have mine written right here.
For me, it's the one that gets memed the most, and it's I guess that's not the most melodramatic part. For me, the most unintentional funny scene is one that a lot of people poke fun at, and it's the first time Bella walks into biology class.
Yeah.
There's like a fan, and it blows a gust of wind towards her hair, and her scent drifts over to Edward, and he looks like he's about to fucking vomit profusely everywhere.
It's like a mix of like vomit and orgasm. Like it's like I don't know how he kind of got that.
Yeah, like he's about to come and throw up. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, so that's definitely up there. The biology scene, but like I think my favorite might be. Let me just let everyone know. Don't ever mention moving to Jacksonville to Bella ever again. Oh my God, I was genuinely like stressed when her response to Edward. It is at the end, guys, but her response, was just insane. She was stumbling over her words like 100 times. Like she wasn't breathing. She wasn't like, it was just insane. It was crazy. Can we just talk about her her very consistent cadence of how she speaks? Like just her breathing.
I wanted to bring this up.
Ridiculous.
Because it really hit me while watching New Moon, which I finished right before we started recording. And I get it now. It makes total sense because I will go on. I think Kristen Stewart is a very good actress. I have seen her be very good in multiple films. I think she's incredible in Spencer. I think she's very good in a lot of different movies. The issue with this movie, and it probably comes down to direction, is that Kristen Stewart delivers every line in these movies as if she's confused about the line that she's saying. The way that she speaks, the way that, like you said, her cadence and how she delivers lines, it feels as if she's unsure that she's saying the correct line in every single line delivery.
I just imagined her, like, before they said action and she was about to deliver a line, I just imagined every single scene she was holding her breath before every line she spoke. This girl lets out the biggest gasp with every line she speaks. I kind of wanted to even... I wanted to even like say I should just do this episode in her manner of speaking and just like gasp. But I think the levels will just jump way too much in this if I do that. But like, dude, when she like, all right, just like one line I have when there I said again. Damn it. When her dad says you got the pepper spray when she's about to go out with Edward, and she just goes, Dad. I was just like, oh my God, ew. Like, can you like not, can you not breathe that much into my ear? Like, I felt like I was wearing headphones and I wasn't. It was so in like my head, but it's throughout the whole movie. It's very, I can't tell like what, if it was her being directed that way or if she was just so confused by this script or it just didn't make any sense to her that I don't know. But I think it was also her problem. I think she just didn't know how to take this character because maybe they were not given much of something to go off of. Same thing with Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, well, the thing is, it's not even just those two. I think there's so much to tackle in this movie. I feel like we're going to talk more about this one than New Moon. I have so much less to say about that movie. But it's not just her cadence and her dialogue, too. It's her, like, body movements.
Yeah.
And also, one thing that pissed me off, and I actually wrote it in my notes, but I was like, if you notice, in every single scene with Bella, her mouth is always open. She never closes her mouth.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Edward is always like snarling or looking mean, which brings me to another point. And again, I feel like we're guys, if you haven't listened to this podcast, we don't talk about it chronologically. We kind of just jump around and talk about things we like and don't like and break things down like that. But oh my gosh. There's two Edwards in this movie. And it makes me think because I remember seeing a Robert Pattinson interview a couple years back. And I think it may tie into that. But there's two Edwards in this movie. There's Edward in the first half, and then there's Edward in the second half. And they are two completely separate, non-similar characters. Because Edward in the first half always acts like he doesn't know. He acts like he walked onto the set and doesn't know where he is. And then Edward and he's all serious and he's all edgy and he's mean and he tells Bella that she's a fucking idiot, basically.
Oh my God, the biggest gaslighter there is.
She's like, yeah, he gaslights her because she's like, I saw you save me. You pushed the truck away because, Bella almost gets crushed by a fucking truck or a van or whatever. And Edward like saves her life and then gaslights her. And he's like, nobody's going to believe you. Like, what are you talking about, you crazy person? It's fucking hilarious. But in the second half of the movie, once Edward and Bella get together, she knows that he's a vampire. She knows that all of the Cullens are vampires. And we didn't really talk about how creepy that setup is and weird. But in the second half, he's like a lighthearted jokester. He's like a fun, happy-go-lucky guy. And, he's always smiling. And in the first half, he's all just like mean and nasty. I just had to bring that up. But what I wanted to say was one thing that I think this movie actually nails, unironically, and I don't know if it was intentional, but part of the reason that I think it's more so the direction than Kristen Stewart's performance is because I think they really wanted to, and again, it goes into what we were talking about like going overboard. They wanted to nail down the tone of like angsty high school teenagers. And this film is riddled with angst in every sense of the word, in terms of like visuals, the tone, the aesthetic, all of it, and including the story and characters. But like all of the characters. And it starts when Bella's first day at school is the most absurd shit I've ever seen in a movie. She is the new girl at school, and it's like, I don't know when she gets to school. They say it in the movie, but I didn't write it down. But she's joining their school late in the school year. The second she arrives, every guy wants to fuck her. And Kristen Stewart, a beautiful actress. I think she's very attractive. But in this movie, they go out of their way to make her look like the most normal, basic girl possible. And again, they go a little far because they make her as pale, if not paler, than the vampires themselves.
Yeah.
But everybody's pale in this movie, which is another issue, which lends to your credibility that they put a filter over it and didn't adjust like skin tones or anything like that. But not only does every guy in the school want to fuck her, all the girls in the school seem to know who she is. It's her first day. It's her first day at school. They plan on writing a feature in the school newspaper about her.
Yeah, and
what
I can't tell but when she pulls up, there's a moment where I forget the kid's name, but he says nice ride or something like that. That was like, wasn't that like kind of like making fun of her, right?
I mean, it is a pretty shitty truck, to be
right. But that same guy,
the shittiest truck in the world, and she is the most excited you will see her in any of these 4 movies. The most amount of emotion you see out of her is when she gets that truck, and she's like, "This is fucking awesome. This is the best." It's
not what I was. Which I guess is nice of her. Like she's just appreciative to have a vehicle. But like when that scene was happening, I thought she was gonna be like, oh, why this isn't me? Like, why'd you go with this? But she is ecstatic about it.
Well, that's what you'd expect. And I want to bring up a scene prior to this, but it's when she first gets to Charlie's house, and she's like, her dad is like set up her room, and he's like, "Oh, you still like purple, right?" Did you notice the horrible ADR in that scene from Kristen Stewart? So you can tell because her face is turned away from the screen. And she kind of just has a reaction, and then she just like, after a couple seconds, she nods. But before she nods, and when her face is turned away from the camera, there's this terrible ADR, and it's when she goes, "Purple is cool." And you could tell because I replayed the scene because I was like, that seemed weird. I replayed the scene, and the dialogue inside like the scene itself does not match the way she sounds. Like she sounds like she was in a recording booth for the
I gotta watch that again.
She definitely was. And I was like, I never noticed that, but that is just abysmal. And there's a lot of moments like that in this movie, not per se bad ADR, but like we said, just really weird bad editing mistakes, and it's so jarring. But like they go so far with the teenage angst in so many directions. And again, like also, Bella kind of gets sexually assaulted. I hate to casually throw that term around, but so I think the guy you're talking about, is it Mike? Mike's the one who's like, "Nice ride," is like the one who constantly wants to be with her. Yeah, he's the one that almost hits her with his van. Oh no, that's a different guy. That's the one who assaults her. That's the one who runs up and kisses her.
Yes, that's what I was going to talk about. So in the beginning, it seems like it's like kind of like casual bullying. Like he's like, "Oh, nice ride. What a shitty car." But like he just says "nice ride." Or you're supposed to take that as like they're making fun of her car. But then the next scene, he runs up behind her and kisses her on the cheek in the cafeteria. And I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know what the hell that was. But now all of a sudden he loves her. I just don't get it. I also don't get how you mentioned it before, the van scene when she almost gets hit. Dude's going 100 in a school parking lot. I don't know how he loses control of the car. Maybe icy, rainy roads, but why are you going that fast in a parking lot?
Oh, see, no, I have that scene locked down in my memory. So he's already flying into the parking lot. And again, as we mentioned, it's Forks, Washington. It's always raining. So already slippery, roads and whatnot. He flies into the parking lot, and a car starts backing out. And he like swerves around it and like loses control, and Bella almost just gets flattened like a fucking pancake. That's when Edward saves her. But again, like going back to like the whole like all the guys want to fuck her. And again, I want to reiterate, Kristen Stewart, very attractive woman. But again, they go out of their way in this movie to make her just look very normal, very boring. Like, I'm sorry, Anna Kendrick, more attractive. Throwing that out there. But Mike immediately starts trying to flirt with her. Mike is one of the friends she ends up meeting, just like normal, boring white dude. Mike wants to be with her. And then there's this other dude, this Asian guy, Eric, they're all in this like friend group together. And Eric is immediately the one who approaches her and is like, dude, we're going to write a feature about you in the paper. It's going to be sick. And she's like, please do not do that at all. And then they sit down at the lunch table, and they're Eric's like, what's her face? Christian Serratos, Susie Crabgrass. I think her name is it Angela in this movie?
I can't remember her name, to be honest.
Yeah, Angela. I think it's Angela. Angela walks up and she immediately takes a picture of Bella, and Eric shuts that shit down immediately, and he's like, the feature's dead, Angela. Don't bring it up again, you stupid bitch. He doesn't actually call her a stupid bitch, but that's like the tone of.
I was like, whoa, did I miss something there?
No. But he's like, the feature's dead, Angela. Don't bring it up, and he's just so mean to her, and my God, it's just again like all of the characters act just so ridiculous, and there's so many cringy moments. Like they're playing volleyball, and they hit the ball to Bella, and she like hits it to the side, and it hits Mike in the head, and he walks over, and that's when Anna Kendrick walks over. I forget Anna Kendrick's name too in this movie. Jessica. Yeah. Jessica walks over, and it's clear Mike's trying to flirt with her, and it's clear that Jessica also has a crush on Mike, and she gets jealous of Bella immediately, and she's like, oh, aren't people from Florida supposed to be tan? And Bella's like, yeah, I guess that's why they kicked me out. And Mike goes, ha, 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 that's funny. And it's just every line of dialogue, every interaction with any character in this movie is just so uncomfortable and so angsty and cringy and again melodramatic. She moves
from it's Arizona, right?
I'm sorry, Arizona. Yes, Florida.
That plays a part
is
later.
Where her mom and is it her mom's husband or boyfriend?
I can't remember if they're
I don't
married.
know, but he plays like minor league baseball.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think I gave it away. So guys, when you're hearing this, we record episodes in a weird fashion. On our horror movie draft episode, which if you guys did not check it out, if you didn't check it out, go check it out. It's a really fun episode. Let us know who won our draft. We draft horror movies based on specific categories. Lots of fun. We had a great time doing it. It's shorter than most of our episodes, so there's that. But in that episode, I said we were talking about Twilight soon, and I said that there is a top 5 greatest scene in cinematic history in the first Twilight movie. And Josh didn't know what I was talking about, and I would like you to guess.
I didn't?
No.
Oh, it's not the baseball scene?
It's the baseball scene.
Oh, yeah. I'm surprised I didn't know as soon as you said it.
It's the baseball scene, guys. And it was while watching the vampire scene that I finally understood Twilight. The first Twilight, it's an anime movie. It's anime.
I don't know anime that well, so you have to enlighten me.
From the way it's so overly dramatic to the way that the characters say every line as if it's the most important thing they're ever going to say, to the baseball scene. Dude, so breaking into the baseball scene, this is when Bella has already kind of integrated herself into the Cullens. She's dating Edward now. They're a couple, and she's already met his family, which includes Rosalie, who's the blonde, Alice, who's the brunette, Emmett and Jasper, who are both dating Alice and Rosalie, and then their pseudo-vampire parents, Esme and Carlisle. Who Carlisle is also, he works at the hospital or whatever, which is, I feel like, insane for a vampire to work in a place where there's probably constantly blood being just moved around.
He's trained.
He is very, very good
Which I guess that's how he got. I guess that explains how he's gotten so disciplined.
Well, he's also been a vampire longer than all of them.
Right, yeah.
So, and he said he knew right from the beginning that he didn't want human blood. Well, he wants it, but he knew that he wanted to help people. They kind of mentioned that in New Moon a little bit. But yeah, so the baseball scene, right? They take Bella out to go play baseball, which my favorite scene in the movie is the baseball scene, but my favorite moment is Charlie's reaction when Bella basically says, "Hey, I'm dating Edward Cullen and he wants to meet you, formally introduce himself." And so she brings Edward in, and Edward's like, "Don't worry, sir. We'll have her back early tonight. She's just going to come play baseball with my family." And Charlie, the actor Billy Burke, has the most genuine reaction to finding out that Bella, the most uncoordinated person on planet Earth, is going to play baseball. He kind of like laughs and he's like, "Bella, baseball? Good luck with that." And it's just so genuine, and and Charlie is the best character in all of these movies. I love Charlie. He's the man. And we'll talk about it, but fuck Bella for how she absolutely rips his fucking heart out later in
Oh man, that was intense.
That was so brutal and unnecessary in every way, shape, and form. But we get to the baseball scene, and you find out that the only reason that they can only play baseball, vampire baseball, when it's a thunderstorm is because vampires hit the ball so hard that it sounds like a crack of lightning when they hit the ball.
Oh, is that why? Yeah. Fuck, I missed that.
They don't say it, but that's the vibe you get, is that they can only play during heavy thunderstorms because the noise of the ball being absolutely fucking crushed is equivalent to a thunder strike.
Did they use wooden bats?
No, they use metal bats.
Okay.
Also, I would like to add that Alice is the worst baseball pitcher of all time. She is like playoff Clayton Kershaw. And I can say that because I'm a Dodgers fan. Go Dodgers. But she is like playoff Clayton Kershaw with like a sub 16.5 ERA. Every pitch she throws, and she does like this perfect like form when she's throwing, like she like throws her leg up like it's a ballet dance, and
yeah, I love it.
Throws it right down the middle, and every single pitch she throws gets absolutely demolished by whoever is hitting the ball. And that's Josh's quote at the beginning of the episode. Oh no, you brought up the spider monkey thing. But another monkey quote is Emmett makes a crazy catch in the outfield.
Yeah.
To save a home run. And
yeah, what's with the monkeys?
And Rosalie goes, "That's my monkey man." Meanwhile, it's like a Dutch angle on her face.
How do you feel about all the like camera movements in this and camera angles?
It's absurd, but it's so much fun.
Yeah. And at least like it definitely knows it's absurd, right?
It doesn't.
You don't think it does even in that scene?
No, because this movie takes itself so seriously.
But in that scene, like you have to like assume that they're like, yeah, we're just having fun with this, but this is not supposed to be. Maybe not. I don't know. That's crazy if not, because like it's filmed so just insane. Like, is it when Carlisle goes up to bat, or is it Jasper? It's one of them, and it's just that like very like tight wide shot kind of like of the bat, and it's just like they're just like having a blast here.
It's so awesome, and it's like unironic. It's goofy, but it's unironically such a fucking awesome scene. Like, it's vampire baseball. It's so fun. And one of the best parts about this movie is that vampires are like super fast in this universe, and they do the shittiest effect when anytime like a vampire has to run fast. It's like this really weird shot where the character's arms and legs are just the only thing that's like sped up, so it looks so goofy every time they fucking do it. But one of my favorite moments too, and I forgot how goofy and funny this moment was, but it's their vampire baseball scene unfortunately gets interrupted by the 3 rogue vampires who, like I said, have been committing these series of murders throughout Forks Township. It is Victoria, Laurent, and James. And I'll bring this up now. I'll probably bring it up in the next episode too, but Victoria is played by, I don't know if it's Rachel Lefevre or Rochelle Lefevre, but she plays Victoria in Twilight and Twilight New Moon. She is then recast with Bryce Dallas Howard in Twilight Eclipse. So a little bit of recasting there, but we'll talk about that more when we get to it. We can compare and contrast Victorias. But they show up and they're like, oh, well, and this is when shit gets really serious because Edward's like, oh, I shouldn't have brought you here. Just stand behind me, put your hair down, which I feel like doesn't make sense because I feel like the scent of her hair is more likely to be blown by the wind if her hair is down than up. So I'm always confused by that, but either way, the three rogue vampires approach them and they're like, oh, we're sorry. We didn't know that this territory had already been claimed by vamps. And they're like, no worries, no worries. We try to keep a low profile here. And it's very tense and very serious. And they're like, all right, well, we'll just get out of here then. And you're like, oh, okay, all is solved, all is fine. And then they're like, but, Laurent is like, well, why don't we play with you guys? Why don't we play some vampire baseball? And man, do I wish that we would have gotten to see a little more vampire baseball. That would have been so great if we got to see like Laurent and Victoria and James play with the Cullens. That's my ideal world. Give me that movie. Give me that director's cut. But just
make a baseball league out of this whole series.
Honestly, I would watch that 10 times. Give me like 5 seasons, 10 episodes a season. I'm in for that. Just vampire baseball all around, baby. But the game doesn't get to start because just as they're about to play some more vampire baseball, a big gust of wind blows and James catches the scent of Bella. And this is my favorite moment next to the Charlie one because we get a vampire standoff and all the vampires get into like these crouching positions.
Yeah.
Like they're about to fence and they just start like growling and snarling at each other. And it takes itself so seriously.
Why is James like the more like intense, hungry one? You brought a snack. Like no one, neither Laurent and Victoria like don't give a shit about the snack. Why is he like I guess it's just his like, I don't know. He's like the more intense one.
He's just a mean son of a bitch.
Yeah,
he's just one of those.
He
evil vampire.
Yeah, he never backs down.
Yeah. We didn't really say that, but if you guys are still listening and you haven't seen Twilight, basically, there I go again. But what happens is you find out that the Cullens, and this is actually another issue I have with the script, and I'll say it in a second, but the Cullens are, as they call themselves, vegetarians. They do not eat humans. They do not feast on human blood. They feast on animals. And as Edward describes it, it's very difficult for them because it's like a human surviving on tofu, where you're always full, but you're never quite satisfied. So you find out that the Cullens are kind of like the good vampires. They don't kill humans. And then but the issue with this is the first murder of the movie, you don't see the characters' faces. You don't see who's committing the murder. So there's kind of a murder mystery. And essentially, it's kind of built up like you're supposed to believe that the Cullens are the vampires committing these killings and going around and killing people, which is not a bad setup. If you're going into this movie for the first time, you don't know anything really about the plot or the story or the characters. It's like, oh, she's falling in love with a vampire and they're going around and killing innocent people. That's kind of something. But they completely ruin that because Edward tells Bella that they are, or no, I'm sorry. Before that, you get a second killing. And in the second killing, it happens on this like boat dock, and you now see who the vampires are who are committing the killings. It's Laurent, Victoria, and James. So within the first 30 or so minutes, you're kind of completely dispelled of any mystery of whether or not the Cullens are actually murderers. And it would actually work so much better in the film's favor in terms of like just story beats and how the kind of script unfolds if you kept that mystery of, oh, are the Cullens murderers if you kept that up a lot longer, it actually becomes a lot more of an interesting film. And maybe the pacing and it being a 2-hour fucking movie, it doesn't feel as bad because you kind of have that layer of mystery. But similar to Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, they completely get rid of that cool mystery way too early on in the film. And then it's really, again, so again, we just talked about the baseball scene, and that doesn't happen until like 90 minutes into the movie. It's like an hour and a half into the movie when the actual like plot kicks off, where now James wants to hunt Bella and wants to kill her and get her blood. And you only have 30 minutes left. And you're like, all right, this might take a little bit. And this is leading into a scene that I had mentioned earlier that I would love to bring up. Bella has to come up with a reason to run away. So she goes back to her house to get some stuff because she plans on going into hiding while they deal with James. And the only reason they know that James is coming after them particularly is because Laurent approaches the Cullens and is like, listen, I don't want this fight. I don't want this smoke. James is going to come after you. He's a fucking monster. He has senses that are unparalleled. I've never seen it in my 300 years of being a vampire. He's insane.
Which I don't get, because why are they like a group? It seems like he doesn't agree with James. He doesn't really like, I don't know.
So what I got from their relationship is that Laurent doesn't mind killing people. He's fine with hunting down humans. He's fine with feasting on human blood. But James is very, I guess, twisted and sick about it. You do get that line in the second murder, the one that I mentioned on the boat dock, where Laurent kind of shows up last. Victoria shows up and James shows up, and James is like toying with the guy, and Laurent shows up and he's like, James, let's not play with our food. Like let's not make this a fucking sick game. Let's just kill the guy, get our food, and get the fuck out.
I just don't get why he goes out of his way to like, tip them off and protect Bella. And it really doesn't make sense when we get to New Moon.
It makes less sense when we get to New Moon, but
yeah.
But yeah, so Bella goes to her house to get some stuff, and Edward like convinces her to be like, you gotta be ruthless. You gotta really go after Charlie. There are so many alternative options to say, and instead Bella chooses the worst one, which is to tell Charlie that he's basically a fucking pathetic loser. Who this is like, what do you have no life. All you do is eat steak and cobbler at the diner and watch fucking Seattle Mariners games and
goes into him as like a husband and his failed marriage.
She basically, and then she later proceeds to be like, she's like, I told him exactly what my mom said to him the day she left. Why did you do that? What are we doing?
Yeah. Bella, I forgot she said that to Edward.
Bella, what the fuck are we talking about? Why are we doing this?
Yeah, he takes beatings. Religiously takes beatings.
Charlie deserves so much better. Bella is a fucking awful daughter. Oh my God. Jesus. I'm trying to look through my notes. Do
you want to get to the... Well, let me see. What's after...
Well, how do you feel... Okay, so I guess we're kind of nearing the end of the movie, but... We kind of get to, well, first off, I just want to mention how long the scene is when Bella confronts Edward about being a vampire. She like walks into the woods and he follows after her. And one thing this franchise loves to do is wide shot walking transitions. The kind where you like do a wide shot of the characters walking, you hold on that wide shot, and then it like... the characters fade, and then now they're like 20 feet ahead, because they do it in this movie and they do it in New Moon, so whatever, that's fine, I guess. But that scene is like fucking 10 to 15 minutes long. Probably not, but it felt like 10 to 15 minutes long. It is like, oh my God, it is so... Just go up and say, hey, I know you're a vampire. And then he proceeds to have, again, the most melodramatic, overly just dour fucking response to where he's like, I gotta show you something. So he takes her up far high up into the mountain after she's like, I know you're a vampire. And he's like, he walks into the sun. And this is where you find out that vampires in this universe, they sparkle. They don't burn in the sun, they sparkle. And he's like so sad and upset about it. And she's like, "You're beautiful." And he's like, "This is the skin of a monster."
It's like no,
Dude,
you're
you are like
glimmering with diamonds.
You are 6'4". You're handsome as hell. Your hair is coiffed to the max, and now you glitter in the sun. What are you talking about? What the fuck are you doing here? This is so absurd. Oh my god, these movies.
Doesn't it like I forget how it like transitions, but it like rapidly cuts to these like really fast when he like grabs her and like runs up the is it that part where he just like runs up the hill with her, and it's just like it's so it doesn't know when it wants to be like really fast paced or like take its time. It's just back and forth like all over the place.
No, like I said, this movie is horribly paced because, as mentioned, it takes 90 minutes for anything of substance to happen, which is the whole James hunting Bella situation. And then that is wrapped up shockingly in like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Because I was so confused because the whole, so all right, we'll get into this. But I just want to say this because I know I'll forget. The whole James hunting Bella thing, again, wraps up in like 10 to 15 minutes. When that ended, I looked and I was like, "Oh, the movie's over. The movie's pretty much over." And I looked, I clicked on my remote. There was 20 minutes left.
No, you still got a prom. You still got a prom to go to, Jake. Can't forget about prom dancing.
Yeah, dancing. Not such a good idea for me. Oh my god, the line delivery again. She says that line like she's confused, as if this is the line she's supposed to be saying. And
wait. One of the maybe the cringiest part is when I think his name's Tyler, the one that drives the van into her. Yeah. So I think Tyler shouts her name in the parking lot. It's like in the beginning, and she's listening to music and she has her book, and she like turns around, she's all like hunched over, like really she just looks awkward, which is fine, and she just waves the book and gives the most awkward like smirk. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yes.
That is like that made, I think, out of all parts in this movie, that made my skin crawl the most.
Well, that's why at the beginning of the episode I said that she makes a new group of friends, but she doesn't seem like she really likes them that much.
Yeah.
Like she only decides to go to the beach with them because Eric is like annoying her and keeps saying "la push" in a very weird way. And that's when we get a little bit of lore in this Twilight universe, because she runs into Jacob, and we really haven't talked about
him at all.
At all. But
worst wig I've ever seen, maybe.
Yeah.
That's bad.
Yes. Jacob is a childhood friend of Bella's, as he says they used to make mud pies together. I don't know what a mud pie is, but whatever. And he goes to school on the reservation. So he's, this Native American reservation. So he goes to like this private school. And La Push is on the reservation, the Quileute reservation. And she runs into Jacob and his two friends there. And his one friend, in the most obvious, direct way, says, "The Cullens don't come here." And then it cuts to Jacob and Bella walking on the beach together. And she's like, "What did your friend mean by the Cullens don't come here?" And Jacob goes, "Oh, you caught that? What do you mean, did she catch that?" Never has something been said in a more like ominous, direct tone than the way that the friend said that shit. But you find out that in the world of Twilight, back in the day, supposedly, according to Quileute legend, that people on the reservation, the families there, are descendants of wolves, and decades ago they made a pact with vampires that they had this treaty, and they wouldn't cross on each other's land, and in return, vampires would not turn humans or something of that sort. So they have this like treaty. And then I looked it up because I was confused, and I was like, but wait, wouldn't people know if the Cullens used to live here and then, now they do again? And I looked it up, and apparently the Cullens last lived in Forks, Washington in 1930, in like the 1930s. That's when the treaty was made.
So here's my not my big problem. One of my big problems with this movie and the writing. I don't understand how often they move. They have a frame of like 100 graduation caps. Yeah. So Edward is going to school every 4 years, right?
Yes.
Okay. Where?
Well, so apparently they go to high school and then they go to college. That's the gist of what I was able to find on the internet.
Okay.
Of really hardcore Twilight fans.
Okay. So every 8 years they move. Is that what I'm getting? Like, where does he go to school?
No, because sort of, but not exactly, because they say in New Moon that they've been there for at least 10 years, because Edward mentions that Carlisle is 10 years, or he's supposed to look 10 years older than he actually is currently.
Right.
So I think and the way they say it in, I don't know if it's the first one or New Moon, but Edward does say that, like, because she says something like, why would you keep going to high school? And I had that thought myself. I was like, why would you keep just going to high school? And Edward makes a good point. He's like, the earlier we start in high school, the longer we can stay in one area. So if they like start in high school and then go to college and then they like spend a couple more years, they could probably get away with it. Whereas if they like immediately started and they were like, yeah, we don't want to do the high school thing anymore. And you know, guys, this is the Sam Raimi 80s horror high school kind of route where all of the high schoolers look like they're 30 years old. Not a single one of them looks like they are a 17-year-old person. But so I don't know.
All right, do they have a license? Certainly they need to show that.
How do they cut out there? What was that?
Do they have licenses? Driver's licenses? Don't they need to show that for, like, you know, certain moments of their life, like driving or I don't know, just
that. I mean, you just go to the DMV and you get a driver's license. So.
Yeah, but do they change their name? Are they always by the name of Cullen? Or like, do they change the year of birth? How do they?
Yeah, they would have to change the year of birth.
Is that easy?
When you go to get your driver's license, they don't ask for your birth certificate.
All right, but when you do have to provide your birth certificate, you know, there's moments in life where you have to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's that
or
hard
a social security number.
That's a little bit harder. The social security thing, that's a little harder. I don't know how they get around that one.
Yeah, doesn't make fucking sense.
No, it does not, and that's because these films are not concerned with making sense. They are concerned with just all these movies care about is the romance. That's all
I thought
these
they
films
said.
care about.
I thought it stated somewhere that he does go to school every 4 years. Like no. Okay.
No.
Well,
no,
anyway,
because it's mentioned that they've gone to college before.
I still don't get why he has to go to school. He could do something. He could get a job. Like, he doesn't have to just keep going.
It's because he can be an easy A+ student because
yeah,
he knows everything apparently, and is also a very gifted pianist. I think it's funny you brought up driver's license though, because while kind of sifting through trivia, I found out that Robert Pattinson, when he got the role, he immediately went into very heavy training, both for the role as like to get into the character and also physically, which I guess he's got like skinny boy abs in this movie, but it doesn't really seem like he like worked out for this role. Maybe he did. Maybe that's the look he was going for. But one thing that I found interesting is that he did not have his driver's license prior to the filming of this movie, and his character drives quite a bit. So Robert Pattinson had to get his license for this movie, which I think is kind of a fun fact. Also, 5,000 actors auditioned for the role of Edward, and good old Cedric Diggory won it. Imagine
just being picked out of 5,000 actors.
I imagine just your ego is just skyrocketed at that point. Like, wow, they chose me over 4,999 people. That is absurd. Also, for the role of Carlisle, I also read that both Ben Barnes, who plays Caspian in the Chronicles of Narnia films, and Diego Luna, who is in Rogue One and Andor, were up for the role of Carlisle. So that's fun, I guess.
Well, so let's go to one of the last scenes with James.
Yeah, let's wrap.
Dude loves to document on camera. I don't know what he's going to do with that later. when he just busts out the camera and he's
Maybe
just like
he gets off on it.
Maybe.
Yeah, we didn't say, but as they go on the run and Jasper and Alice take Bella. Meanwhile, Edward, Esme, Carlisle, and Rosalie, they all go a different way, and they all wear like Bella's clothing with her scent to like lead James away. But he tricks Bella into going to her old ballet studio because he calls Bella and he found somehow an old recording of her mom, just coincidentally, of her screaming for Bella's help and where are Bella, where are you, and then he cuts that off and he's like, what does he say? He says something like, the public school records, they don't do good job keeping you safe. I knew exactly where you were, yada yada, blah blah blah. So he tricks her to going to her old ballet studio where he attempts to kill her, and he is in the midst of killing her. He bites her, and then good old Edward shows up, and we get a little vampire fight. So how do you feel about the vampire fight? I actually kind of liked it.
I didn't. It's so. First off, I expect a little bit more from James. He's like portrayed as like a more intense figure. The fight is over in 2 minutes. Like,
well, yeah.
Like, I mean, like there's a couple. They throw each other a couple times back and forth, but I don't know. By the end of it, I was like, oh, there really wasn't really much of a threat here. I don't know. It just
no. I agree. They do build James up to be more threatening than he ends up being, and I think I would have been more inclined to love this final climactic fight. I think I just liked it because something interesting was happening. You get like two interesting things in this movie, and it's vampire baseball and a little vampire fight. But I would have been more inclined to enjoy it and like it as a story decision because Edward does kind of get his ass kicked a little bit, but by the end of the fight, he has beaten James.
Yeah.
And he's holding him and he's about to kill him and he bites his neck and all that shit. I think I would have liked it more if Edward was losing the fight and the Cullens showed up, because I can believe that all of the Cullens would be able to take down James.
Yeah. Yeah,
that
exactly.
would have been a little bit better story-wise for how they build up James. When Laurent tells you like, oh, he has unparalleled senses, I haven't seen this in like 300 years, you really are led to believe that he is a much more powerful vampire, which we haven't gotten into Twilight Eclipse yet, and we will get into that later in the next episode. But they do something in that makes this shit make even less sense. But that being said, yeah, I get you. So again, like the editing is the biggest issue in this final fight. It's just way too choppy. There's just too much over editing, and it seems like it was done to really just hide extras, or not. I'm not sorry, extras, but like stunt doubles in the fight choreography. It's not super well choreographed. Again, I kind of liked it just because something interesting was finally fucking happening in this movie, and it wasn't just fucking Edward and Bella laying in the grass looking at each other for 5 fucking minutes. It's
the best part of that. The best part of that scene was just listening to Robert Pattinson, in part of the soundtrack. Did you know that was him singing?
I did.
Yeah.
He also plays piano. It's actually him playing piano in those scenes. And I do want to say, I don't know if you agree, there's a lot to be said about this music. And one of the funniest aspects of this film that we did not discuss at all is every time there's like a dramatic moment in this film, they do like this weird guitar riff. Like it's like they do like, and it's not the same guitar riff, but every time something dramatic happens, there's like this weird like little like 90s punk rock guitar riff that plays, and it's
really
so funny.
I don't think I noticed, but I definitely you can't really forget about the soundtrack. It's obviously a really good soundtrack. I don't know if it fit. I mean, I guess it fits.
It fits, but it's not used appropriately.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like what we talked about in Fear Street, where Fear Street has an amazing soundtrack. It's just how the music is used in those movies.
Yes. Yeah.
But why I brought up the music is I actually really do, as an actual piece of music composition, I really like Bella's Lullaby. I think it's just a very nice. It's when they're sitting next to, like, she's next to him on the piano and he's playing.
That is nice.
I think it's a very nice little tune. It's very, when I think of Twilight, like musically, I associate that theme with these movies. It's just a very nicely written piece of piano music. And again, the scene is way too overly dramatic, and that's just kind of the issue with this movie is it takes itself so seriously. It's so overly dramatic and fucking melodramatic all of the time. You can see why it works on like young, easily impressionable teenagers, why that kind of shit works. But yeah, like you said, the soundtrack is good. I do like Bella's Lullaby. I think that's a nice piece of music. But the biggest issue with Bella and Edward, and why when you said you liked their romance in the first one, I knew you were bullshitting and just fucking with me. Because similar, this is actually a really great comparison to an earlier episode that we did on The Matrix. And I kind of made a joke that it's better than Neo and Trinity. But their relationship is almost exactly like Neo and Trinity, where you're not given any scenes where the actors have any chemistry, which is insane. Happens. It just happens. Like immediately the second, and I want to talk about this too, because this is another like weird editing mistake, but with the second Edward and Bella like lock eyes, it's like love at first sight. There's just this immediate, deep, intense attraction to each other, to the point where the second they actually finally get together, Bella has her little, and we didn't really talk about the what is it called, the voiceover with Bella, because it's awful voiceover. It's how the film starts out, and it sort of happens towards the end of the film, but you get another one later on, and it's, there were 3 things I'm certain of. 1, Edward is a vampire. 2, there's a part of him that lusts for my blood and will always lust for my blood. And 3, I'm so fucking in love with him, man. And that's paraphrasing, because I didn't write down the exact 3 things, but that's the gist of what she's getting at. And it's like, girl, you're 17. You've known him for maybe a couple weeks, if that. Yeah. The passage of time is not conveyed well in this film. You barely know him. And he's also an asshole
to her. He's an asshole to her like a lot of the movie, and somehow that just makes her more in love with him.
They go on a school trip, and when she trips in the greenhouse, he goes, "Geez, can't you watch where you're walking?"
Yeah, for real. Like, fuck off, asshole. Like, Jesus.
I love too when she almost gets like, I hate to say it again, she almost gets like brutally sexually assaulted in an alleyway.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that.
Yeah, she goes dress shopping with Jessica and Angela for prom, and the only reason she goes is so she can go to a bookstore, which I have an issue with, because she could have just Googled it from the start. Yeah. She literally opens the book, finds one thing, and then goes back to Google and looks it up. She could have just skipped the bookstore thing, but whatever. But either way, she like, and one of my least favorite tropes in movies is the whole character Googles fucking all of this abundant information about the subject matter, and it's just all out there for them. It's just like the laziest way to deliver exposition in a movie, and this film just is so guilty of that. But she goes with them, and then she like is like walking by herself, and these like 5 or 6 dudes like approach her, and they're like clearly about to do horrible things, and Edward just fucking whips in with his fucking SUV, and 5 or 6 drunk dudes just immediately back off because Edward snarls at them. He gives them like this mean look, and they're all just like, whoa, and they fucking run away.
Which the next scene when they're driving away, and he's like, talk to me, so distract me, so I don't turn around. And I hate that's when he talks about his like ability to read minds. I think I don't know if that's when he first says it, but he's like, you don't know the horrible things that they were thinking. And she was like, and you do. First off, anybody with a brain would know what they were thinking. It doesn't take a mind reader to know what they were about to do to you. But she's like, oh, like, how would you know? What, can you read minds? No, Bella. No, it's just context. You know, you kind of just pick up on.
Well, he says that too. He says something like it doesn't take a genius to figure out what they were thinking or whatever. But yeah, you mentioned we didn't really talk either about. You find out that some vampires have special powers, which they'll talk about a little bit more in New Moon. But yeah, so back to the whole ballerina scene. James, you find out that the only true way to kill a vampire is you have to behead them and then burn their body. So the Cullens show up, but you know, Bella has already been turned, or she's starting to turn because she was bitten by James, and they find out, or they don't find out, they already know, but Edward has to suck the venom out of her arm.
Why does Edward have to? Why doesn't Carlisle? He's the trained one. He's the one that can like resist.
what bothers me even more is it's clear at one point in that scene that Edward is struggling. Like he's sucking so hard on her arm, and he's like unable to like pull himself away. And you get more terrible editing with like it's like Bella's like fading in or out. You get like a whole recap of the movie. Like they show the movie in
you get
like,
a trailer,
a recap for him. Like it's a trailer or some shit. Yeah, and.
Carlisle Carlisle just doesn't like interfere. You could just take Edward off.
Dude, I wrote that exact thing in my notes. I was like, why is there's 4 or 5 other vampires in the room?
He's like,
why is nobody pulling Edward off of her?
He just says in the most calm fashion, "Stop, all right, Edward. Her blood's clean. Like you're killing her now. That's enough. Just pull him off. He's clearly struggling. He's not trained for this. Just pull him off."
Yes. It's so weird. Like dialogue in this movie is either said in the most dramatic way possible or the most monotone, unbothered way. There is no in between in the way that dialogue is delivered in this film. The only normal person is Charlie.
Yeah, and it also doesn't make sense. Let me just like rewind in the movie. It doesn't make sense that they would just allow a human being to just enter their like headquarters, their home, just like it's nothing. Like well, you brought a human in. Oh well, that's you shouldn't be doing that, but no, okay.
I wrote in my notes, I was like, I fully agree with Rosalie in this scene. This is putting every single one of them at risk. Also, Edward can get some strange. I just don't I don't understand. But yeah, so James is burned. He is killed. Bella is saved. You cut to her in the hospital. Her mom is there. And then everything seems all good. And Edward is fake sleeping. And we didn't really talk about it, but in probably the creepiest part of the movie, Edward loves to watch Bella sleep. That's like a thing that he proudly admits to her, that he likes watching her sleep. And I looked up on the internet if other people found this creepy, and one person wrote, it makes no sense because he says watching her sleep fascinates him. And she's like, he's been around since like the 1920s or some shit. Does he not understand the concept of sleep? I don't understand. Yeah. I don't understand anything that happens in this movie. But like you said, we still have a little bit to go. But basically, and there I go again saying it, but I'm trying, doing better.
He's been around longer. He's been around since the 1800s.
Oh yeah, because he was dying of Spanish influenza. But Edward and Bella decide to go to prom together, which probably really pisses off Mike, because when Mike asked her, she said she was going away that weekend to Jacksonville. So he's probably, but he gets to go to prom with Anna Kendrick. So, it works out for him in the end.
Let me tell you something. What a view they had at their prom. You see that background of like the
crazy.
It was insane.
My prom didn't look nearly as good. It was in like a fucking shitty ass location. We didn't even get to take limos to prom. We had to they bussed us there so nobody would drink on the way. It was terrible. But yeah, so the film kind of ends with Edward and Bella dancing, and it kind of pans up and out, and you see that Victoria is watching over them. Yep. And that's kind of how the film ends. And
she somehow slips into prom. Don't know how she does that.
Vampires, they don't abide by the laws of physics.
But she's dressed up as if she's going to prom. So it tells me that she got in there officially.
You maybe she just she just dresses for the occasion. I could not tell you.
She wants to fit the role.
Yeah, she she doesn't want to stand out. But I think that really kind of covers the first Twilight movie. Kind of looking through my notes. I wanted to bring up the editing mistake in the lunchroom scene because I didn't mention it earlier, but just another testament to just this film being very poorly edited. When you first see the Cullens, they are walking outside about to enter the lunchroom. When you see them, they're all walking together. And then, so that we can get more exposition about each of the Cullens specifically and how they are loosely adopted brother and sister, because they have foster parents, but they are also all dating each other, which, creepy. I agree with Jessica. It's creepy. They walk in, and so that we can get the exposition on each character, they walk in 15 feet apart.
Yeah.
So
like a runway.
like Alice and Jasper walk in, and that's so we can get the information about them. And then like a couple seconds later, Emmett and Rosalie walk in, so we can get information about them. And then another 10-15 seconds later, Edward walks in, and that's so we can find out about him. And that's when the initial love that kicks off this wonderful saga begins between Edward and Bella. But I just wanted to bring that up because, again, the editing is just so fucking abysmal in this movie.
I am surprised we didn't really talk about the rain scene. You know, you're asking me about the rain. I don't really like the rain. I don't like any cold, wet thing. But it's been so memed over, that whole scene. I don't think we really need to.
The way you just delivered it is probably better than how we got it in the movie. Because, again, the way she delivers lines is like, I don't like cold, wet things. I don't. And she's always like, uncomfortable talking.
If I can just recommend, I'm sure everybody has seen this guy, but this guy is so funny. He does a great job of reenacting these movies. But Tyler Warwick on Instagram or TikTok, when he does that scene, I forget if I sent it to you. I think I did.
It was very good.
I don't. Have you ever seen that guy before?
No, I have not. I'm not a big TikToker, so.
Yeah, I mean, I mostly see him on Instagram because I'm on Instagram more than TikTok. But oh man, I've been soaking up his content of Twilight. It's just so good.
I watch probably YouTube Shorts the most out of anything, and I'm glad that I did not YouTube any Twilight stuff because then that would definitely be on my feed repeatedly.
Oh, I'm fine with that.
One trivia fact I thought that it was kind of interesting, and it's kind of just to what you had said earlier about Robert Pattinson doing some of the music for the movie. Nikki Reed, who plays Rosalie, was the one who got the producers to add Robert Pattinson's songs to the film. She had secretly recorded from her laptop while he was singing and playing guitar during like filming breaks, and then showed the producers, and they were like, yeah, that's going in the movie. And they asked Rob if he would do it, and he was like, I guess. Oh, but the last thing I want to mention before we move on is, unless you have anything else to say, is the interview that I talked about Robert Pattinson earlier on in the episode. He had said that during the first couple days of filming, which I looked up, this film took 48 days to shoot, and the first scenes that were filmed were the vampire baseball scene and the ballerina fight scene, solely because the actor playing James, Cam Gigandet, whatever, he had a scheduling conflict, so he had to go and shoot another movie, so they kind of had to shoot his stuff first.
Was it Never Back Down?
It might have been.
Because I think they came out the same year.
Oh, that's awesome. I love Never Back Down. It's such a shitty movie, but it's
so bad.
It's so bad. Shout out early Evan Peters movies before his American Horror Story fame. But yeah, one of the things that I remember him saying in an interview is he basically was acting in a couple scenes, obviously during the first couple days of filming, and they had approached him and said, I don't know if it was his agent or the director or a producer who approached him and basically said, hey, if whatever you're doing right now, stop doing it or else you're going to get fired. Which leads me more to believe that's why we got two different Edwards in the movie. Not just because the story progresses, but because he literally was at risk of getting fired because they did not like his performance or what he was doing with the character.
That's wild.
It is. Again, nobody hates Twilight more than Robert Pattinson, which I think is funny. And I'm reading now that before casting, Robert Pattinson had never heard of Twilight. That's funny.
I gotta read these books.
No, you don't.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna. I have every one but the first one.
Oh, that's fun. I always remember that cover.
I get
holding the apple. Did you know that scene is real, where he catches the apple, like bounces it off his foot and catches it? It took 12 takes.
Oh no, really?
Which 12 takes is pretty crazy. Like that's not. It makes me think of like because I know that scene in Scott Pilgrim versus the World when he throws the book behind him and it lands perfectly in the trash can. Mm-hmm. They did that practically too. Like there's no CGI in that. I wonder how many takes it took to get that.
There's no Tobey Maguire and Spider-Man like 100+ takes to do the tray.
That's just, yeah. Well, dude, when I told my roommate when we were watching that movie a couple months back, when I was like, hey, that's practical. That's not CGI. Like, they did that. Like, he caught all of that shit. And he's like, there is no fucking way. I had to, like, show him the trivia fact to, like, prove it. But, yeah, who knows, you know? But either way, guys, any more thoughts on Twilight, the first one, Josh?
I'm ready to go to New Moon and just have
all right, guys. We will
little
move
to say,
on
but do my best.
we will be watching or talking about Twilight New Moon in 1 minute. We're going to take a little commercial break, guys, and we will be back with Twilight New Moon, the successor to the beginning of the greatest love story ever told. All right, guys, we're back after that commercial break. And now we are moving on to Twilight New Moon, the second film in the 5-film saga. Came out 1 year later in 2009, so they were quick to capitalize on the success. This film instead is now directed by, I want to make sure I say his name right, even though it's a pretty normal name, but this one was directed by Chris Weitz. It had a $50 million budget and made $711 million at the global box office. So we are now in the midst of the Twilight craze. It is popping off. Everybody's going and seeing it. And this film is way worse than the first one.
Yeah, which okay, so you're gonna have to explain to me, Jake. There was a period of time where did you think this was better than the first? Which, hey, right. Some people do. Some people do. You're not like, it wasn't crazy of you to think that.
Well, those people are wrong. I have flipped. The reason is I haven't seen these movies, I don't know. What year is it? 2024. I haven't seen these movies in like 4 or so years. Last time I remember watching them was probably with my college roommates back in like 2020, maybe 2019. So 4 or 5 years since I had seen them. And I'd always kind of been a Team Jacob fan, you know, and this New Moon is essentially the Jacob movie, and we'll get into the plot, but, you know, Jacob is kind of brought to the forefront. Edward takes a back seat and is gone for a large portion of the movie. With that said, I had flipped. I am definitely Team Edward now, for sure. But when I was younger, you know, I'd always liked New Moon because I'd always thought werewolves were cooler than vampires. The vampire thing didn't really do it for me, and which is not entirely true because, as mentioned when talking about Twilight 1, I loved this movie as a kid. But yeah, Twilight New Moon, I don't know. What I loved about the first Twilight was, like you said, that attempt at style. It had a little bit of personality in the filmmaking and the visuals, aesthetic, and tone. Whereas New Moon and the preceding sequels, they have just a very bland, uninspired look to them. You don't really get any fun, creative camera work like you did in the first one. And albeit the first one did it a little too much and the editing kind of ruined it. But this one, it just has like a very bland look to it in the color grade. It just looks like every other movie. It doesn't really have a lot of that kind of bluish, uglyish.
I don't have any of it.
No, it removes a lot of that. And you also kind of, in not just the look, but like in the tone too, because while there is some weird stilted dialogue delivery, that sort of teenage angst, that like really weird, uncomfortable way that teenagers tend to act is not as present in this one as it was in the first one. And so all the stuff that years ago that I hated in the first Twilight are things that I have grown to appreciate in that movie because it's the only one in the franchise that stands out. It's the only one that I can really remember the visuals and the way it looks and the way it feels. And the movie does have a feel to it. For better or worse, it does have a feel. And I will always take something that maybe goes a little overboard, but is at least stylistic, as opposed to a film like this, which is way more just barren. But yeah, there's just so much about this movie that feels kind of bland, whether it's the aesthetics, the tone. It's just a lot drier than the first one, and it just doesn't have that sort of sense of fun and edge that the first one had. Again, it's a lot of teen angst, and it's an odd color grade and all that stuff. But again, you can point to the first one, and there's fun scenes inside of it. I really like the vampire baseball. The final fight, while being poorly edited, you get a little bit of a vampire fight, which is a little fun, a little spicier. Get those silly little guitar riffs anytime something dramatic happens. And in this one, you don't really have much style or personality in the look.
That's what I was going to say. There's a lot more personality in the first one. This one's definitely the safer option, which I wonder why. I wonder if there was just so much backlash on having the first one just be too stylized. Like, people criticized it too much, and they were like, all right, let's tone it back. Let's just, I don't know. This one definitely felt like more producers intervened and said, let's tone it back. But I will say, to kind of playfully play devil's advocate for it, if you wanted to have the people on the side of it, you could say, oh, but this one has like a warmer tone, and it makes sense because Edward's not in it, the Cullens aren't in it. It's Jacob and the wolves, which are like they're like the warmer creatures. It's not as cold, but
yeah, and
that's all I can really say to try to defend it. But
and kind of again, while sifting through trivia, I kind of noted, that a couple of the facts were about that, where because of the lack of vampires, Edward's gone, and again, we'll break into the plot in a minute, but you kind of switch to the werewolf side of things, which we forgot to say it again. Full spoilers, guys, but, if you're still listening, then I assume you've seen these movies or you don't care. But, so Jacob is a werewolf. His whole family's descendants of werewolves. A lot of the Quaalude people who live on the reservation, they are also werewolves. And one thing I did want to note that was cool while sifting through trivia is all of the supporting actors who, played the friends of Jacob and the other werewolves, they all had to provide paperwork that showcased that they were of Native American descent. So all of the kind of supporting cast. So I thought that was kind of neat to kind of, at least, be a little bit respectful towards Native American culture and whatnot. So I thought that was neat, but you can make the argument, and it is sort of devil's advocate, where it's like, yeah, because of the lack of vampires, because of the lack of Edward, and it's more focused on Jacob and warmth, and that's like a big thing. Like, the vampires are cold, and vampires are really cold. Werewolves are hot. Like, that's something they mentioned in the movie. Like, they're physically warm people. But I don't know. It's just, I don't get that while watching the movie.
It still looks boring. It doesn't.
Exactly. And it shouldn't take me reading a trivia fact to get that vibe that that's what they were going for with the visuals and the aesthetic. Whereas you watch the first film and you totally get what they're going for and why they're doing what they're doing. Again, they maybe go overboard, but at least you can kind of look at it and go, yeah, this area, like, it makes sense. This is where vampires would kind of live. And I kind of missed that in this one. And while the first one, like I said, is boring for a majority of the movie, and the only thing you can kind of have fun with is laughing at the cringy dialogue and the way it's delivered, and just, like, again, the overly dramatic tone. With this one, you just don't really have much to deal with. And this one takes even longer to get to the kind of big moment, which is Edward thinking that Bella is dead and about to commit suicide, essentially. But that doesn't happen until way late in the movie. And the reason that happens, in the first one, you're like, oh, okay, it doesn't, it's not completely unbelievable. They bring Bella out to play baseball. They don't think that these other vampires are going to come in contact with them. And they mentioned in the first one that the way that the tracks that the vampires, the three, Laurent, Victoria, and James, that led, they'd kind of led out of town. So it seemed like they had left. Whereas in this one, the big inciting incident basically is that Jacob and Bella are in Bella's house, and instead of Bella, Jacob answers the phone. And the way he says what he says, which is, Charlie's not here, he's at the funeral, or he's preparing the funeral, makes Edward believe that Bella is dead. And that's when he decides to kill himself. And so the whole thing happens because of a misunderstanding.
Yeah. Which I still don't understand the rules of Alice and her ability to, like, see the future. I don't know, like, when she can, when she can't.
So that's an issue I have and we didn't really bring it up in the first one. We kind of mentioned how certain vampires have powers. Edward can read minds, and Alice has the ability to see the future. But then Bella kind of questions it, and Edward goes, well, her visions of the future are subjective. The future can only change. To which my note on my phone was, well, then her power is basically fucking useless, because if she can't actually see the future,
it doesn't make sense.
Then why does it matter? But so yeah, let's set the stage. What kicks off this movie? This is basically the movie that has Edward in it the least, which I think is funny because, again, while sifting through trivia, I found out that New Moon is actually Robert Pattinson's favorite Twilight book, which I think is really fucking hilarious because it's the one that his character's in the least. But Bella and Edward, they're dating. It's all good. Everything's great. The film kind of sets off with her having these nightmares of her getting old and out-aging Edward, and her feeling like he won't be attracted to her then, which is silly and stupid because she's literally turning 18 years old.
Yeah, and she acts like each year is like another 10 years. She's like, I'm 18 now. I'm 1 year older than you. It's only a matter of time. I'm sorry, Bella. You got a clean 40 years.
I don't. Whatever. Whatever.
And no one hates their birthday more than Bella does. Like you wish her happy birthday, she says fuck off.
She will slit your throat for mentioning the words happy birthday. But it's Bella's 18th birthday, and they decide to have Bella over the Cullens' house to celebrate her birthday, to which, clumsy Colleen over here, she gets a paper cut in a room full of vampires, and Jasper, who is the newest member of the Cullens, so he's the one who's been a vampire the shortest amount of time, still has the worst control over being around human blood, and gets all feral, is about to attack Bella. Edward, instead of just stopping Jasper and the rest of them stopping Jasper, because again, it's just a paper cut, so it's a little bit of blood, so the rest of them are kind of okay at first, fucking yeets Bella across the room, smashing her into a table. Into glass.
A mirror.
Yeah, into mirror, through a table. She cuts her arm and now is bleeding profusely from her arm. And all of them, except for Carlisle, are like, I have to leave the room. I cannot be around this bitch. She smells too good. I want to feast on that blood. This little incident really sets off the plot, which is Edward and the Cullens decide to leave Forks. Edward breaks up with Bella in a similar fashion to in the first movie when Bella rips out Charlie's heart. Edward kind of rips out Bella's heart because he leads her out into the forest and tells her, bitch, I don't want you no more. You're not for me. And Bella, who's profusely in love with Edward, believes that she is not good enough for Edward, so she believes this wholeheartedly. He leaves her in the woods. She gets lost, passes out, and now, boom, Cullens are gone, and Bella goes through a horrible depression. And this causes her to spark up a friendship with Jacob, who is now yoked to the max. Six-pack.
It's insane.
Six-pack.
Insane.
Fucking looks like fresh buttered rolls out of the oven. Pecs for days. Biceps the size of a normal person's head. He's yoked. And that's sort of what this movie is. It's Jacob and Bella developing this friendship, furthering that friendship. Obviously, Jacob has feelings for Bella. That's made pretty obvious throughout the film, and a little bit in the first one, it's kind of hinted at. But that is what this movie is about. So you'd ask yourself, well, if it's just Jacob and Bella getting to know each other a little bit more and hanging out, fixing motorcycles or whatever the fuck they do, what's the movie about? And the answer is nothing.
Yeah, it's literally just that. It's her trying to get over a breakup, leading a friend who turns into her best friend over a week. Like, they were never best friends, but she claims that he is, like, after day 2 of fixing bikes together. But yeah, it's just that. It's her trying to play a little with danger, getting reckless after promising she won't get reckless.
Correct.
But so at the beginning of this, I mean, it's no secret that this movie just makes no damn sense at all. But I mean, like, the whole movie of the first one is just spent, like, with this insane infatuation from both sides, Edward and Bella. I can't live without you. I can't breathe without you. Whatever. First one, I wrote down a couple of his lines that just made me crawl all over inside. Bella, you give me everything just by breathing. The only thing that can hurt me is you. You're my only reason to stay alive. This is all before the little birthday party incident, and he just... I could say I get, but I don't get. But like, let me just say, I get you're trying to protect her because of that little incident, but really, it was one incident. You can and everybody decides to move just because of that. I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all. They just completely get up and leave. Like, he uproots everybody's lives. And just to do it in that fashion of like, you're not good for me, I don't want you, just so intensely hurtful. It doesn't add up to all the feelings that he said he had for her. It's so intense. It's so out of nowhere. It doesn't make sense for his character. And the worst part is he just leaves her. That there could be danger for her. Like, Victoria hasn't been caught. So you leave her completely unprotected. I don't know. I didn't buy into them being like this as in love as they were, but now I don't buy into like him being this cold to her because of how much they were in love. I don't know.
No, it's very similar to the first film where it's like, Bella, you really did not have to be that mean to Charlie. There's so many alternative routes and ways to phrase and say things to not completely butcher the person's heart. Same with Edward and Bella in this scene, because it's like, listen, you're fast. We've been shown how fast vampires are. Y'all are just going to leave. So why the need to cut her heart out and fucking throw it away? There's no reason. You can just say, listen, I love you, but what happened the other night can never happen again, and we have to go.
And where do they go? Right. They just go to a different state? Like, they don't go to Italy, right?
I could not tell you, man. I could not tell you where they go.
Yeah, so, like, you leave her unprotected, but you're still there because there's visions of you all over the movie, and that's really him, like, keeping an eye on her, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know, like, what she's up to at all times. You're able to kind of see into her life at all times. There's never one moment where he, like, gives a shit of any danger she puts herself in. Like, he just puts himself in there as a vision. How about you, like... I don't know. It's like...
Well, he's not there, so he doesn't know. And what Josh is referencing, and we didn't talk about it when describing the plot, but Bella realizes that Bella needs to go to therapy. Let's put that on the table. Because she realizes that when Bella encounters danger, when, the adrenaline starts pumping, she essentially turns into an adrenaline junkie in this movie. It's because when she has moments of fear and she acts reckless, she has visions of Edward. And it's the only way that she can see Edward and remember that he's real, because I think he, like, steals photos of them. Like, he breaks into her room, and before he leaves, he, like, takes all the photos.
So is that just her envisioning him, or is he, like, actually making himself present as a vision?
It's just her envisioning him. It's
okay.
Not actually him.
I thought it was actually him, like, kind of, like, making himself present there.
No. It's just her visions. Okay. And it's so funny. It's so funny because...
I guess, but, like, I don't know.
Which is why she should be in therapy.
Yeah.
Why she should
I like how she just, like you said, she becomes an adrenaline junkie, and every time it's like she sees like a situation that provides excitement, it just becomes her own personal brand of heroin. We didn't really talk about that line from the first movie.
No, I'm mad that I didn't talk about that more, because that's literally my favorite line in the first movie. You're my own personal brand of heroin. It's Edward. I don't think you've done heroin, but that's beside the point. No, it's man. There's so many issues with this movie.
So all right? Let me ask. All right. So I feel like this section of the episode, New Moon, because there's so little plot and like such boring plot. I feel like this whole episode is just going to be me now questioning everything, just asking you questions of things that I didn't think made sense, or just how you felt about how bad things were.
Let's dig into that. Let's hear it. Any questions you got? I'm the Twilight guy.
Just your personal opinion. Who do you think was worse, Bella or Jake, in terms of their acting? Yeah. Okay, cool.
You know why? Because you know who has, out of the it's like a sort of a love triangle, right? Edward, Jacob, Bella, and that's the whole Team Jacob, Team Edward thing that took the world by storm. And I think the only reason I was Team Jacob when I was a kid was A, because same name, and B, because he was yoked and Edward looked like a skinny, scrawny bitch. Mm-hmm. That's why. And then you, as an adult, you realize that Jacob is kind of just like a whiny little bitch in this movie, and in all of the sequels, he's just like a whiny little cocksucker. Sorry for my language, folks, but he really is. And like, you know why I know Taylor Lautner is the worst? Because Taylor Lautner is not a good actor. Sorry, Taylor. I know you're probably not listening to this. I don't think you're a very good actor. You seem like a really cool dude. I love Shark Boy and Lava Girl, but it is what it is.
It's tough because I think he is like a really nice guy. Like I've seen him like kind of like it, but really bad.
M. Night Shyamalan seems like a really nice person. It didn't stop Trap from being like one of the worst movies I saw this year.
I didn't know you saw it. Yeah,
they brought it to HBO Max, and I watched it in Halloween because I was like, well, it's kind of a horror movie, sort of in a sense, not really, but sort of. But back to New Moon. Taylor Lautner doesn't have a career.
Yeah.
Robert Pattinson is one of the best actors working today. He's working with a bunch of indie auteur directors. He was in a Chris Nolan movie. Kristen Stewart, same thing. A lot of indie movies, a lot of auteur directors. Also Oscar nominated at this point. Not that I give too much credit to the Oscars because they get it wrong 90% of the time, but I do think she was fantastic in Spencer. Very good actress. What's the last Taylor Lautner movie you've seen?
Yeah, no, for real. But like, it's no secret that Kristen Stewart is awful in these movies. And even Robert Pattinson, as good of an actor as he is, he's not good in these. So
yeah,
I agree. Actors can have a pretty like good career and even Oscar nominations. My biggest example, or one of them, is Robin Williams. Robin Williams is like horrible in a lot of his movies and like his bad ones. He's like, it's not that the movie's bad. He's really bad. So good actors can really be awful. And sometimes like a worse actor can just, but I still think Taylor is just worse.
Yeah.
I think he has less to do, which makes his job easier, and he just still can't put any kind of level of emotion in anything. At least I can see a little like attempt to try to like, Bella's character is supposed to be social awkward. I could see her trying. It doesn't come off well, but like Taylor is just so
flat,
boring. Yeah, just over and over. Like I just don't buy into anything that he's feeling ever.
Yeah. Like, again, it's I don't love the relationship between Bella and Edward, but there is something to the way that when Edward is talking about Bella or to Bella, there is that intensity. With Taylor Lautner, it just doesn't seem like Jacob very much cares. It doesn't seem like there's that level of love and compassion in the performance. And
Jacob just cares about himself. Like that's really apparent in this movie.
He does care for Bella, but it's just not.
But he cares more about him. He just does.
He's definitely out for his.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely out for his own interest. I do want to say, though, to your point about Robin Williams and how good actors can be bad in bad movies, I do wonder, though, if it's a question of, are they giving bad performances, or is it bad direction in a bad movie that has a bad script and it's a bad character? Because the best actors in the world, I think, would struggle with being given a movie that is not being made by a passionate creative filmmaker, and it was not written well, and the character is not really developed. Like, we could talk about Robin Williams in Jack all day, and we will on one of our bonus episodes, I'm sure of it. But I will say I think it's tough because I think a lot of us, like myself included, once we got a little older, I got out of my Twilight phase, you kind of look at the Twilight movies and you're like, wow, Kristen Stewart, Robert Pattinson are fucking terrible actors. And then you watch Spencer and you're like, holy shit, Kristen Stewart's fucking fantastic. Holy shit, Robert Pattinson in Good Time and The Lighthouse, unbelievable. Chef's Kiss.
Yeah.
Wow, so good. So I do think it's tough. But yeah, Taylor Lautner's still bad in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, you and I can have a separate conversation again about Robin Williams. I could talk about him all day. It can always be script, poor direction. But especially when you're an actor, like when you can be an actor of that caliber, I should say, you kind of know how to kind of take control of yourself. Even like I've seen actors be in bad movies, have bad scripts, and I can still see that they're like the best thing about it. In movies like even Hook with Robin Williams, I think he's terrible in that. And I'm like, okay, you have Steven Spielberg, who's a good director.
Hook's a terrible movie, though.
Yeah, it's really bad. But I'm like, it's not like Robin Williams is like the best thing about this. There's better things than him. He's acting ridiculous. And I feel
think he's one of the better parts of that movie, though.
Maybe. But yeah,
there's
it's
not a
bad
lot
movie.
of good things, but not even good thing, but just one of the better things.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to know like when it's direction, when it's just an actor just not really knowing what to do with it.
Well, that's one of the most
themselves.
underrated parts of being a director, I think, is a lot of people have this misconception of what a director does. And I think a lot of it is one thing that I learned, one of my best courses that I took in film school, and a lot of the classes were kind of bullshit. Like, they didn't teach me a ton. And I think a lot of what you learn in film school can be learned online or just being on set and making films.
Right.
But one of the best things is I took an acting class, and it was taught by Marcus Giamatti, who's Paul Giamatti's brother, which was kind of cool. And just taking that class and acting myself and seeing how Marcus Giamatti directed me to perform just showcased to me how important it is for directors to work with actors. So where we can poke fun at how bad the performances are in Twilight when it's, Robert Pattinson or Kristen Stewart, who have gone on to have much better careers, and I do think actors can hone in their talents over time. I'm not saying like an actor can't be bad and then become good, but I think it's to me, it just makes me question like, oh, are they just doing what the directors told them to do? Did they perform it a certain way and it was probably better, but the director said, hey, no, that's not what we're going for. Let's do a different way.
It also feels weird to me that a director such as like Francis Ford and Steven Spielberg would have such horrible instincts as a director to direct such a poorly like done performance. So I can't, I don't know.
No,
I feel like
and it is astonishing. I brought up M. Night Shyamalan earlier. You go back and you look at, I think The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable are not just good movies. I think they're pretty damn great. And other than some stupid plot holes in a movie like Signs, Mel Gibson is great in that movie. Joaquin Phoenix is great in that movie. Like, there's great performances, and it's honestly a pretty well directed film. There's some script issues, and then you go to movies like Lady in the Water or The Last Airbender, where the acting just drops off and it's so just not where it needs to be, and the direction is really aimless, and it doesn't feel like there was a lot of intent and behind the decisions. It really makes me wonder, is it possible for like directors to lose that sense of what makes a film good? What is it about my previous movies? Now, I haven't seen it yet, but people are kind of shitting on Megalopolis, and it's just like, this is the guy who made The Godfather?
yeah.
Like, what is...
I'll be honest, that trailer, so I saw some of the acting even in the trailer, and it looks ridiculous.
And
like
Adam Driver is a great actor.
Yeah.
It's very confusing. You can watch him in Marriage Story, and you're like, holy shit, this guy knows what the fuck he's doing out there, and it's just confusing. But we got a little off track. Back to New Moon. Back to New Moon. No, but I think it is important in the context of this. I want to highlight some positives, because I feel like we've been a little negative on New Moon so far. I think for 2009, I think the wolves looked pretty good for the CGI, the fur. Now, I do think it is easier to make a CGI character that's sort of just like a larger version of a real life creature, but the textures look good, the cell shading looked good. It honestly all around, the CGI and the animation, I thought looked pretty good when they're kind of fighting each other. The shadows are correct. The kind of dents and implants they make in the ground as the werewolves are kind of scrapping, those are accurate. So I was pretty impressed overall with it being a 15-year-old film now for the CGI to hold up particularly well in that spot, especially after how bad the effects work was in the first film with the running animations of the vampires. So it was nice to see like some CGI effects still look good and kind of hold up.
Yeah. And I think like probably one of the more interesting things they do with the camera is the season change. Like that's cool. Compared to like everything else in the movie where it's just like very basic, like, I don't know, it's very basically shot. Well, I think. But I think that I think it goes on a little long.
It goes on long. She's wearing the same outfit in the transitions, and also, I did not need. Now, while it was a complaint in the first one that the passage of time was not very good, in this film, because of the story, we know when the film starts and how, and if you do that transition, that sort of, 360 panning shot of Bella and you show the seasons changing, I don't particularly need you to put October, November, December on the screen. I can tell, oh, there's leaves. It's probably October. Oh, the trees are dead. It's November. And then they show snow. So I didn't need the added context of them putting the months on the screen.
Yeah. No, I feel that.
But I agree. It is one of the few moments in the film where you do get a little bit of kind of creativity in how they show transitions. Mm-hmm. I will say, even though we lose that kind of creative camera work, we lose that really distinct kind of color grade in this film. The editing was a little bit better. It didn't feel as jarring. The cuts weren't as jumpy and sporadic as the first film. To whereas in the first film, when the vampires fight, the cinematography is kind of ruined and the choreography is a little ruined because it's just so choppy. It's very, handheld camera. In this film, when the werewolves are doing their thing, it's a little bit more, I can see what's going on. I know visually what's happening and I can appreciate what's happening in front of me a little bit more.
And that goes into the safer approach. Like it kind of like ruins it a little bit, but it also kind of saves it in those areas where it's like it's a very safe approach to the editing. It's not as jumbled, it's not as sporadic. So I guess, but let me see here. There was something. Oh, why is Jake always shirtless? Like seriously, why? And don't tell me because he turns into a werewolf he loses his shirt because he has pants yoked on. I just don't get why his character is always shirtless.
You got into Twilight, you said like about a year, maybe 2 years ago. Did you know the casting dilemma with Taylor Lautner as Jacob?
No.
So, in the first film, obviously, he's got the long hair and he's always wearing sort of a lot of clothing. He's always got like a jacket on. He's always wearing, sweatshirts, whatnot. In between the filming of this and the first film, the directors and producers basically said, if you don't bulk up for this movie, we will recast you. And so in a very short span of time, Taylor Lautner gained 26 pounds of muscle and then was recast as Jacob in New Moon. So maybe, which I do think is funny, and I didn't notice it until this viewing. And again, it's just because, when you're watching a movie, in the sense that you're going to talk about it in a podcast format, you tend to notice some things. And one thing I noticed is that Jacob and Sam are like the only two absolutely yoked, jacked werewolves. The other werewolves just look like normal dudes. The one dude is like skinny. He's what I'd call skinny fat, where he's not fat, but he's like skinny, but got a little bit of loose skin.
I know exactly what you're talking about,
The one is just skinny, has no muscles, doesn't even have like skinny boy abs.
Which is weird. Why did they just cast? If they were going to recast Taylor, why did they just cast everyone to have that look? If that's what they wanted,
really don't know. I always thought, for some reason, I had it in my memory that all of the werewolves were just a bunch of these jacked Native American guys. And this time around, while watching, I was like, so why did they put so much of an emphasis? I guess maybe to like make the love triangle a little bit more of a spicy thing. It's like, oh, you got two different build guys. You got the tall, skinny guy, and then you got the shorter, jacked guy.
But I get you want to show that off. You had him do it. Let's utilize his body, sure. But in question of his character, why is he shirtless? Is it because he transforms into a werewolf and he loses his shirt?
Because
then he should just be completely bare ass. Because he loses all his clothes.
Bare ass. Hashtag show us the ass cut. Show us the Taylor Lautner booty cut. Hashtag.
I'm gonna look up
I'd
the
rather
Taylor
watch
Lautner,
that than what's up?
I'm gonna look up Taylor Lautner meal plan prep for New Moon.
He looks so good in this movie. It's insane. His biceps are so massive.
Dude, it's for me it's his like shoulders and traps that are like insane. They're massive.
His traps are off the charts. They're not like quite Tom Hardy level in Bane, but like
no.
As Bane in Dark Knight Rises. But no, they're still up there. The man got absolutely shredded. He was definitely on some steroid, 100%.
Had to have been
100%.
Yeah.
There's no way because again, these movies were released a year apart. There's no way he gains that much muscle.
They all were. I was shocked to see that. I didn't realize that they were all one year.
They fucking pumped these movies out. And all things considered, these movies aren't good. But for them pumping them out year after year consecutively, I am a little bit impressed that they were able to maintain a level. Because this movie's not poorly shot in a sense. It's just not anything to write home about. It's not like the framing or the shot composition is bad. It's just nothing like
there's just nothing interesting.
No, nothing interesting. It's just a very bland kind of flat look for most of the film. I had a scene that I wanted. One exchange of dialogue that I absolutely love is anytime Bella makes a joke, because her comedic timing is just horrible. Like we mentioned in the first one when they're like, oh, like aren't people from Arizona supposed to be tan? And she takes like a second or two to think about it, and she's like, yeah, I guess that's why they kicked me out. And then Mike has the most unreal reaction because it's not funny. But in the second one, it's after, so she goes and Jacob is like passed out and he's sleeping, and this is after he's already like become a werewolf, but she doesn't fully know it yet. And then she sees his little werewolf pack walking up to the house, and she decides to approach them, to which she then slaps one of the guys in the face. Another new werewolf, he freaks out, turns into a werewolf, is about to rip Bella to shreds, and then Jacob runs out of the house, shirtless, as Josh mentioned, as he is for a lot of this movie, and leaps over Bella, transforms into a werewolf, and they get into a little werewolf tussle. And that's where I said, like, it looks pretty good. Like, for 2009, I think it holds up pretty well. The fur looks good. The movements look all right. The shading, all that. Pretty good. After that, the rest of them take Bella to the werewolf house, which is where Sam and his girlfriend or wife, I don't really know, Emily, live. And Emily's got these scars over her face, but two of the guys, they walk in, she has a bunch of these muffins ready for them, and she's like, Bella,
the
do you
biggest
want a muffin?
muffins I've ever seen.
They look delicious, though. They looked so scrumptious. I haven't eaten today, and again, I watched this right before we started recording, and I was like, man, those muffins look just absolutely delightful. But they are the biggest muffins I've ever seen. They're fucking massive. It's like the equivalent. You ever go to that cupcake place in New York, like the really famous one that has like the massive cupcakes? It's like the muffin equivalent to that.
Yeah, it's like the size of my head.
But we didn't really talk about it, but it leads into this. So one of the characters from, actually both of them return, but Victoria and Laurent return, and Laurent encounters Bella as she's wandering in the woods one day, and he's like, oh, I went to the Cullens, but they're not here. And he's like, well, Victoria kind of wants to kill you because your boyfriend killed her boyfriend, and now it feels like an eye for an eye, so she wants to kill you, that sort of thing. And Laurent's like, oh, well, you know what, she was gonna kill you slow and make it painful. I'll do it real quick. I'll kill you nice and quick. But before he can kill her, pack of werewolves arrive. They run after Laurent. You don't know what happens until you get to the scene that I was just talking about, where Bella is brought to the werewolf house. And basically they tell her, they're like, oh, yeah, we kind of fucked up that guy. Laurent, the guy with the dreads, not a problem. Absolutely wrecked him. And then you see that flashback of them just like ripping him to shreds, which is kind of fun. But there's this little exchange where one of the guys is like, oh, Bella, you can't trust this girl. She runs with vampires. And again, Bella takes like 5 seconds to think about a joke. And she goes, you can't run with vampires because they're fast. And the other guy goes, oh, yeah? Well, we're faster.
Are they? I don't think they are.
Yeah, they are. What do you mean? They
sure?
caught up to Laurent. What do you mean?
Well, I don't know. I've seen Edward run for the baseball, and he looks much faster than a wolf.
You know what's confusing, though? And again, different vampires might have different speed levels, but they easily catch Laurent, but they cannot catch Victoria to save their lives.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know. I don't know how much faster they are than vampires in general. Laurent was just slow.
Yeah, Laurent was just a slow vamp.
Back to what I said in the first one, it doesn't make sense that he was like kind of like protecting Bella and like kind of helping her out, and now he wants, like, he's trying to kill her. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I don't know. One feature I do like, and we didn't mention in the first one, is, and I don't know if you kind of caught this, but the vampires, the Cullens, their eyes are like a topaz kind of color and like golden brown-esque at certain times. Whereas the vampires who kill humans and feast on human blood, their eyes are always like blood red.
Yeah, I did
Which I thought was
that.
a kind of a cool little detail. Like, oh, like what kind of blood you consume changes the eyes. But one scene I love in this movie is Mike, who at the end of the last movie had taken Jessica, Anna Kendrick's character, to prom. You'd think that they would start dating because it's very clear that Jessica has a crush on Mike, and Anna Kendrick is a beautiful woman, so I get it. But they're not dating, and Mike is still in pursuit of Bella, especially after Edward completely ditches her ass and asks her on a date and wants to take her to go see a rom-com. And she says, how about we see an action movie? There's this movie called Face Punch, which... Do you remember in Drake and Josh how they always had fake movie titles on the theater that they worked at? Face Punch sounds like a fake movie that would be on the Drake and Josh like theater billboard. And then immediately, Mike clearly asking her on a date, she invites a bunch of friends. And guys, I've been in this situation. I've like loosely asked a girl to hang out, to which she invited a bunch of people. Come on.
It sucks. That
like,
sucks.
you clearly can tell that the person
just say no. Yeah. That's all you have to do.
I don't understand. But Bella invites all their friends. They all cancel, but Jacob shows up. So it's like a three-way date with Bella, Jacob, and Mike. And they're both sitting in the theater, and Bella is in between them, and they're both clearly holding their hand that is closest to Bella open for her to like potentially
slightly
hold
curled,
their hands.
like slightly curled, like just so awkward. Let me say something I hate. Just make it realistic for a teenager. You're not gonna tell me that just an action movie with guns is going to make you leave the theater and throw up, because I can hear it. There's just like guns shooting, and Mike just says, okay, I got to go to the bathroom and throw up.
Maybe Mike's just a pussy.
But honestly, it's as simple as just changing the script to a horror movie. Have Bella say, I want to see something with like, violence and blood and, all that stuff. Not an action movie, 100%. Like a PG-13 action movie. Like, I don't know. You're not going to get sick from that. You never. And then Jake says you should hold out for a man with a stronger stomach.
Yeah, and that's right before he threatens to like put Mike in the hospital.
Yeah, which I guess that was his tipping point. Like Bella still being in love with the Cullens.
No, it's
like
when
that.
his like werewolf transformation starts. So that's what kind of kicks that off.
Yeah,
I love Mike's reaction when Bella's like, Jacob, you're hot, and she's like, she means like his skin is like really like warm and hot, and Mike just has this reaction like he's like disgusted that she said that right.
I don't think I noticed that.
He just has this look like, how could you say that in front of me? It's like, dude, Mike, I get it. I've we've all pursued people that probably weren't interested in us. We've all been there. I've been there, but use some context clues, buddy. She is not into you at all. Never has been, never will be. And just let it go. Let it go,
dude. You can like just get Anna Kendrick. Like that's fine. That's more than fine. But I was very thrown off when he asked her to the movie, because I was like, wait, I thought they were dating. They went to prom. I just assumed that they were dating.
You assume because that's how the last movie. But I guess we got one couple. Eric and Angela are dating, and that's fun. She asked him to prom in the first movie. Love to see that. Love to see a woman take charge. It was fun. Eric is such a turd in the first movie, though. Like when he like they're at the greenhouse and he like shakes the worm in front of Bella, and he's like Bella, it's a worm. Look, it's a worm, dude. You're 17. You are 17. Come on.
He's acting like he's in like elementary school.
For real.
But, how did you feel? How did you feel about the different adrenaline kicks, the rushes that she would seek out, the cliff diving and the getting on the back of the motorcycle?
I love the motorcycle thing because what we talked about in the first movie is she basically gets almost violently assaulted by multiple men that's what we're kind of the context we're given is not only are they creepy, but the way Edward talks about it, he's like, you don't even know the vile things those men were thinking. And in this one, they're in like the same area. They're in this like town, a couple towns over from Forks or whatnot. And Bella kind of to put off Charlie, because Charlie's like, yo, go live with your mom. You're not acting normal. I'm scared. Your mom's scared. You're really not acting like a normal person right now. Go live with your mom. And she's like, no. Like, I have friends, yada, yada. I'm going with Jessica tomorrow night to go see a movie or something. And so they get done with the movie and they're walking, and she sees a group of guys on motorcycles, kind of similar to the first movie, and this time actively approaches them just so she can get a glimpse of Edward. She rides on the back of a guy's motorcycle. Thankfully, these guys are not like violent assaulters and criminals. These are just like nice dudes who ride bikes, I guess. And
were they nice? Was that like what I was supposed to get from that? I mean, they didn't do anything, but like...
They didn't do anything mean or bad, I guess.
Yeah,
they
but
just...
I was confused by that because they definitely because they were like, oh, we got to take her. Like, you know, it seemed like it was going that way.
Yeah, I don't know. The context and the tone of the scene is not consistent.
So I hate it. Like,
oh, it's
Bella,
awful.
It just goes to Bella being a shit friend. Also to Jessica, you just left your friend in the streets after like during a hangout.
Yeah,
like
and,
it's crazy.
Bella's a terrible friend in this because she like completely stops hanging out and seeing her friends in this movie for months, thanks to that transition we saw earlier. Months of her senior year she does not spend with her quote unquote friends, and then just out of the blue asks one of them to go see a movie, and then after the movie, when that friend is trying to talk to you and say like, hey, I'm going through some stuff too, you completely disregard anything she's saying. You're ignoring her, and you're just like, oh, I can see maybe a glimpse of my boyfriend if I go fucking hang out with these strangers on bikes in this fucking alley.
And she saw him.
What are we doing?
Like, I don't get, like, she approached him, she saw Edward. How many more visions does she want? She just want to keep seeing him? So, like, why get on the bike? You know, I don't know.
Also, in terms of Edward leaving, this girl has the worst night terrors in the history of night terrors, and wakes up screaming like a fucking banshee multiple times. At that point, if I was Charlie, I'd be like, listen, I'm not getting any sleep. You got to chill the fuck out. You're like, your boyfriend that you knew for a couple weeks left you. I'm sorry, that sucks. But you know,
I'm a divorced man of a failed marriage. All right, you know, why don't you like fucking, you know, I don't know.
Yeah,
get a grip. Get a grip.
It makes
been a
no
month.
sense. One thing this film does do that the first film kind of hinted at, but this film does a little bit in terms of world building, as we find out that there are not only werewolves and that, you know, vampires aren't the only monsters that exist. We get, you know, the werewolves, but that there is a secret sort of ancient community / organization of vampires known as the Volturi. And that consists of the head of the Volturi, Aro, I'm not sure how you say it, played by Michael Sheen, which, in my opinion, is not great casting for the head of a vampire cult.
Well, you didn't buy it?
Not for one fucking second. And I want to bring up, also I forgot to mention, Dakota Fanning is one of the vampires too. And she has this power where she can just cause people pain. And instead of just doing it, every time she does it, she goes, pain.
Badass power, though. Let me just.
It is. But you know
that's
what?
Like unstoppable.
You know what I'm really confused about, Josh? So, one thing that we didn't really talk about in the first one, Bella has special human powers, as she is the only mind that our friend Edward, her lover, cannot read. He can read minds, all except hers. We also find out in New Moon, with the scene with Dakota Fanning, that her powers don't work on Bella. And the head of the Volturi, Aro, his powers don't work on Bella either. So she's immune to vampire powers, right?
Yeah.
So why does Alice see her in her visions, and why is Jasper earlier in the film able to manipulate her emotions?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I didn't think. Yeah, inconsistent. Yeah, doesn't make sense.
No, it does not. No.
However, Alice's her visions of her are kind of skewed. Like it's not really entirely accurate.
No. That's what I thought, and this movie told me otherwise. Because Alice, like we said, her visions of the future are quote unquote, as Edward says, subjective. The future can always change. That's okay, fine. Then this movie tells me that Alice saw Bella cliff diving, jumping off the cliff into the water. They kind of show it earlier on in the film. Some of the werewolves are doing it. It's an adrenaline rush, and she decides, oh, this is another way to see Edward. Riding on the back of a motorcycle of a stranger in an alleyway, not enough. I need to cliff dive. So she goes to this cliff. She sees Edward. She dives off the cliff, and this is where we get Victoria swimming towards her, and we think, oh, Victoria's about to get her. And, Bella gets hit by a huge wave. She gets knocked out. She goes unconscious. And we see someone pull her out of the water. Revealed to be Jacob. Alice shows up at Bella's house. And this is where a little bit later we get the whole Jacob answers the phone. It's Edward. And that's what kicks off the whole going to Italy plot, which doesn't happen until the last 25 minutes of the film.
Crazy.
But. It is then said in that house scene that the reason that Alice could not see what happened to Bella is because she can't see past werewolves. So if a werewolf is near Bella, it sort of blocks Alice's visions of the future of them. That's what they tell us in that scene. That's why she couldn't see Bella, is because Jacob is the one who pulled her out of the water. And so the last thing she saw was Bella jumping off into the water.
All right.
Which is still fucking stupid. It's still fucking stupid.
So, what's the proximity? Like, if a werewolf is what? Like,
I'd say a clean 50 feet. if we're being logistical about
I'm trying to think back to everything that Alice saw. I wonder if there's contradictions there of I don't know.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
We might find those in the later movies.
Yeah, maybe they explain it a little bit later. But yeah, it makes no fucking sense because Bella is immune to some vampire powers, but not others. It's never made particularly clear why Bella is able to do this as a human. I tried to look it up. I tried to do a little digging deep, and some people have claimed that maybe in the books it sort of says that it has something to do with her lineage and her parents having special abilities as well. I'm not really particularly sure. Either way, in the films, it is not conveyed well at all. It is inconsistent, and it makes absolutely no fucking sense. And similar to Mike not taking any sort of context clues and taking a hint, being like, hey, this girl's not interested in me, Jacob also does not seem to take any hints that, hey, this girl is not into me. Or at the very least, she's still very much not over her ex, Edward.
I love the lies that happen here. Like that scene where Jake's like, I would never do that to you. I would never hurt you. And just the next scene, he does exactly that. But he covers it up by saying, I promise I would never hurt you. This is me keeping that promise, meaning physically. But no, we know you didn't mean it that way. Okay, you meant emotionally, and you fucking broke it instantly. It's just...
I love, too, earlier in the film when Edward takes her into the woods, like we said, and he's like, promise me you won't do anything reckless. And I'll also make a promise, you're never gonna fucking see me again.
Well, all right. So Jake answers the phone, which I hate, by the way. Get the fuck off my house phone. That's mine. But anyway, he answers it. Jake's an asshole. So is Bella. They're all assholes. But
not a single likable character except for Charlie and maybe Carlisle.
Yeah, I do like Carlisle.
Esme is fine too.
Yeah. Answers the phone. Blah blah blah. She flips out on him because she finds out it was Edward. He tries to keep her there selfishly. Again, asshole. Doesn't care about anything other than himself. He's about to kill himself, and she just wants to save his life. But whatever.
Yep.
So they fly over to Italy. and Edward is about to break the one law that the Volturi has, right? And vampires can't expose themselves to humans. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yep.
It's not the burning sun that usually kills vampires. It is just exposing.
Just being known.
Yeah.
Getting a little famous.
Yeah. Just seeing who I am.
What I think is funny too is I gotta look this up. I forgot to Google it beforehand. I'm not as smart as Bella, I guess, when she's looking up vampire lore. But before recording, I wanted to look up the festival that they are having in Italy is a festival that is celebrating the expulsion of vampires. Is that a real celebratory event in Italy? They have a festival to celebrate getting rid of vampires.
I highly doubt it.
I don't say that and laugh to like poke fun at Italian culture or anything. Cool culture, love it. I'm just confused as to if this is a real thing or honestly, if they just made this up for the film.
Yeah, who am I? I don't know. I'll have to look that one up. What was it called?
Yeah, it was. I don't remember the name of the festival. I just remember, and one thing I've always remembered about this movie is how everyone in the festival is wearing like a red cloak. It's just like one of the few moments in this film that is like visually, I don't want to say iconic, but memorable, is that when she arrives in Italy and during the festival, they're all wearing these like very like deep red cloaks, which I think is kind of interesting. But
yeah, it's fiction. It's fictional. It's not real.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
All right, that didn't seem like a real one. Now I can make fun of it. That is so fucking stupid. Holy shit, that is absolutely ridiculous. Why couldn't it just be any normal Italian festival? Why did it have to be one about the expulsion of a fictional fucking creature? I say that in the sense that if there are real vampires in the world, that's crazy. I don't believe it. I don't buy into it. I also don't believe in ghosts. Gonna throw that out there. I'm not big into the paranormal, but if there's actual vampires, I feel like there wouldn't be a widely known festival in Italy about the expulsion of them. That's just my 2 cents. You can argue with it in the comment section.
So yeah, this final act just happens very quickly, right? He has the painted abs, yes. Right? Let's not forget about that.
The what?
The painted abs.
Does he really?
Oh, you never heard that?
I did not.
Oh yeah, he has like the like brushed abs on. I think this is the one.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so good. I did not know that I needed to know that detail in my life, but I'm so glad to learn that. Jesus Christ. Doesn't he already have abs? He had abs in the first movie.
I don't know if they just if he had them, they just outlined them, or if they really just painted them on. I don't know.
Were they like, I wonder if the filmmakers were like, Jacob is pretty yoked and we have to make Edward look a little bit more comparable to him.
I honestly think that's what it was. But yeah, Robert Pattinson confirmed that it was like brushed on. So yeah.
This movie really turned me off to jean shorts. I just want to throw that out there. I was never that against them, and then this film turned me against jean shorts. I don't know what there is to really break into too much, but I fully agree that the climax of this and the last film are so rushed, because most of the film is, in both movies, dedicated to just, in the first one, it's Edward and Bella, and then this one, it's Jacob and Bella, and just developing that sort of friendship. And yeah, there's some underlying things kind of going on in the background. Bella dealing with her depression and dealing with losing Edward, and that sort of nonsense. And in the first one, sort of Bella kind of uncovering what the Cullens are and then being vampires. But I appreciate some elements of this movie. It's not horrible. It's not good. It's not a good movie. It's really not. The writing is bad. The characters are not well developed. They're just very uninteresting people. One thing that really bothers me in romance films is you compare Twilight to a series like the Before trilogy, which by the end of those 3 movies, and even by the end of the first one, you get such a sense of who these characters are, what kind of people they are, what their interests are, where their ideologies lie. And in the Twilight movies, all you have is these 2 characters love each other. You're not given anything like about who they are as people who they are, what their characteristics are. Bella and Edward are just, and to an extent, Jacob, they're just blank cardboard cutouts of characters that are just like, oh, these aren't real people. They're just attracted to one another. And you're constantly told, I'm deeply in love with you. I'm deeply in love with you. I can't live without you. I need you. I need you. But that's all you get.
Yeah.
You're not given any
You don't get
scenes.
reason why. You don't get what it is about them that attracts them. You just get that they're I don't know.
And why, another reason why you're maybe wondering why I used to prefer New Moon to the first Twilight is I think I was much less in tune to like filmmaking back in the day as I was to these, and now my sort of like tastes are a little bit more refined into what I appreciate out of a filmmaking experience. However, in the first one, you're given nothing between Edward and Bella. And I think when I was younger, I at least appreciated in New Moon that you do get scenes of of Jacob and Bella just interacting with each other,
I think
kind of having fun.
I think that's what hurts it. It's because he's not good. Like
Maybe.
It's like that's what that if you did that with Ed, because they're just he's a better actor. So maybe he could do.
For sure.
Maybe he was bad because he had none of that to go off of. Like if it was flopped, it would work much better if you just had that kind of movie to just develop their relationship. But it was Rob Pattinson. Well, because
in the first one, all you get are scenes of like Jacob or Edward and Bella lovingly looking at each other, and that's supposed to be the kind of basis of their relationship. Where in this one, you do get scenes of Bella and Jacob just kind of like hanging out, fixing bikes, having conversations, joking around, having fun, eating pizza. And it's not great development, but it's like at least a little bit like, oh, I could see these people being attracted to each other and connecting. Whereas in the first one, you really just don't get anything other than immediately these people are just madly in love with each other. And I think maybe that's why when I was younger, I kind of appreciated New Moon more. Now, as an adult, I just appreciate in the first one, just like all of the weird filmmaking choices. Like, again, aesthetically and visually, it's just very just out there and wacky. And like, again, like the color grade and the cringy scenes. You don't get as many cringy scenes as in this one. You still get them, but they're just not as I don't know if it's intentional cringe or if it was just a product of how it was written and how it was delivered. But man, in this one, you really don't get anything to chew on. There's nothing fun. There's nothing to point at. Some of the werewolf stuff is a little fun and kind of interesting in a lore sense, but these films just don't emphasize or go into enough detail on the lore of this universe to make me give a shit. They kind of just sprinkle it in a little bit and then it's back to just romance.
Yeah.
And I get it, the whole crux of this entire saga is the relationships and the love and that romance, but when you don't give me a reason to give a shit about the romance, then what are you really left with other than vampire baseball?
That's that. I mean, that's pretty much it. That's all. I mean, I don't really know what else there's to say about it. When they come back, there's like the final like slight confrontation with Jake and Edward, and I don't know. It's just like
right. I forgot the ending of this movie, so I didn't mention it, guys. But fun fact: the only version available to rent on Amazon Prime of Twilight New Moon is the extended cut. So I watched a 2-hour and 18-minute version of Twilight New Moon. And I couldn't tell. I haven't seen this movie in so long, so I couldn't, and it's not like Harry Potter where I've seen those movies so many times I could tell when scenes are put in.
Yeah.
There was a couple times where I was like, I don't remember this particularly, so those might have been the additional scenes. But so I sat there for 2 hours and 18 minutes watching this kind of dog shit movie. And my God, it's just, I was so bored throughout the entire thing. Whereas the first one is, you can kind of poke fun at how silly and cartoonish it is. This one is just, like we said, it's bland. But it sort of ends with this sort of love triangle scene in the woods where Jacob professes that he will never give up on Bella and he will not, give up on her and give up on them potentially being together. To which he says, if Edward turns you, the treaty does not protect you. The treaty does not protect the Cullens. They're not allowed to turn people. That's one of the parts of the treaty. And then we'll have to kill you. It'll be out of my hands. And that's sort of what Jacob says. He sort of dips. And then Edward says that he will change Bella. He agrees to change her on the sole condition that she marries him. And that is where Twilight New Moon ends off.
She's still in high school, right?
Yeah. They're still in the end of their senior year. They are 18 at this point. Well, I mean, I don't. Edward's his age is.
He's 109. No big deal.
Confusing, but speaking of that, I did like the scene earlier on in the first act of the film where they arrive to school and she's like freaking out about her age, and he's like, "Oh, what do you mean? I'm like 109 years old or 117, whatever the fuck he says." And she's like, "I know, it's kind of gross. I'm dating an old man. It's weird." And it's delivered so poorly, and so it's like an intentional joke but not delivered as a joke, and it's still hilariously bad and funny, but for the wrong reasons. But yeah, that really kind of closes out my thoughts on Twilight New Moon. It's a very uneventful film. A lot of these don't really have a plot. And unlike the first one, where you can kind of remark at the style and aesthetic and how just overly dramatic it is, this film is just kind of, it's just, you know, it's cardboard.
It's just
it
there.
Is bland it just exists.
Yeah. I'm honestly shocked we got an hour out of this movie.
I'm also shocked.
I took hardly any notes, but it was fresh enough to just...
I took zero notes.
Yeah.
Because I had to watch this movie on my phone, which is my least preferred method of watching a film, but my main TV was taken up, so I had to watch this.
This is the movie to watch on your phone. There is no reason to watch this.
No, I'm really sad I missed out on all the great shots and cinematography in this film. It's just so much purposeful filmmaking. But yeah, this one I think is noticeably weaker than the first. It's just not as fun. It's not as campy. It's not as quirky as the first movie. It just lacks all of that style.
It's not as fun either. At all.
No, it's very. They're both boring films, but the first one has a couple moments where there's like a brief moment of like levity and fun and enjoyment. New Moon is just kind of like a wet blanket of a film.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's just there.
I mean, I'm ready to get into ratings. I don't know which one you want to rate.
Let's get
first.
into ratings. I'll kick us off with Twilight.
Okay.
And then you can take New Moon to start. I'm going to give the first Twilight a very generous 4 out of 10. It's a bad movie. It's very barely a 4 out of 10. I was tempted to give it a 3.
That's all because of the baseball.
Honestly,
that's because of the baseball.
The baseball scene really makes it for me. It's one really great scene. I also, again, I just love how campy and tonally weird it is. It's, again, those little guitar riffs for the dramatic scenes. I know I kind of brought that up twice, but they're just so funny and made me laugh out loud multiple times throughout the movie. It's just so edgy and weird, and it's got a good soundtrack, and I like Bella's Lullaby, and some of the musical themes are okay. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but it's definitely not a good film.
You definitely,
so I'm comfortable with. You
definitely got to adjust your Letterboxd rating for that.
Yeah, I didn't input them yet. I wanted to save my ratings for you on this podcast. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 10.
I honestly shocked. But hey, when I saw you thinking about it, I was like, is he going to go in the 4s? But yeah, I'm giving Twilight what I think is generous, a 3.3 out of 10. And
very fair. I'm not going to argue with that.
Yeah. And that's, I don't know if that's like higher than what I would really like see this film as, but like I said, when you watch the sequels to this, it kind of makes you almost boost this movie a little bit more.
It does,
because you just, I don't know, there's just more to like, quote unquote appreciate, I guess, and not really in a good sense, but just in like a enjoyable way. Like they just do more with this film. There's more happening, even though they're both kind of lacking plot, I think. But yeah,
they just non-existent. Plots,
yeah. So yeah, 3.3 out of 10.
Fair enough.
And I guess I'll kick us off with New Moon.
Give us your New Moon rating, buddy.
That one's getting a I'm gonna go with a 2.1 out of 10.
Oh, Is that the lowest you've given on this podcast?
No.
No, not yet. No.
No.
You've gone lower.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a few.
That's
There's
fair.
a few I've gone lower than that.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. Well, Twilight New Moon from me. I have a lot less to say about it. Again, wet blanket of a movie just doesn't really do much for me, and enjoyment at least. A couple scenes I can laugh at just because of how silly they are. Some decent special effects that hold up, but it's gonna get a 2.5 out of 10.
Nice.
I don't enjoy this movie really at all. It's just not very fun. I could probably put on the first one with some friends and have a good time, but this does nothing for me.
Yeah.
So 2.5 out of 10.
If I'm watching this alone, I'm gonna be upset. But I can watch Twilight alone.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a really good way to put it. You could watch the first Twilight by yourself, have a good time. The second one, you're only gonna maybe have a decent time if you have some friends, and you're probably
And it's longer. It's too long, and it's not
sober.
even close to as entertaining. So it's like,
You're telling me, buddy. I watched the 20-minute longer version.
Yeah.
So.
yeah, mine was 210, and that's.
Oh, okay. So it's only like 10 minutes longer then.
But I don't know if you were including credits in your 218. Was that including credits?
I wasn't. The credits were kind of long, so.
Oh, so it was longer than 218 if you factor that in.
No. I'm saying it's 218.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So maybe not too much added content, but still too much.
Extra
for my
10
liking.
minutes.
It really hurt. But yeah, so that is it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed listening to us completely rip apart and have fun poking fun at Twilight. Again, this is not the podcast where we tell you to like or dislike a movie. So if you guys love Twilight, you think they're good movies, more power to you. I'm honestly a little jealous.
Yeah, and tell us why,
but
please.
Yeah, tell us why you think these are not fun movies, but good movies.
Yeah.
I'd really love to hear that argument in the comment section down below. Again, apologies if my voice sounded a little raspier, a little darker this episode. It's just because I'm still fighting a cold. So with that aside, guys, again, hope you enjoyed listening to the episode. Stay tuned for the next episode, which will air 2 weeks from now. We upload every Tuesday, where we finish off the Twilight saga with Twilight Eclipse and Breaking Dawn Part 1 and Part 2, which I'm very excited for because, as I know, Josh has not seen Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 1 and 2.
And I barely remember Eclipse, so that'll kind of be
Eclipse is it's a little fun. There's a little bit more fun stuff in
Yeah.
Eclipse as opposed to New Moon. From what I remember, my memory can be a little hazy these days. But I'm very excited to kind of tap into those movies. Also, guys, I want to officially promote and kind of send you guys over to our Patreon. We are officially launching a Patreon where we plan on uploading bonus content. We also want to give you guys a little bit of freedom and choice in what we cover in the future. So we want to let you guys kind of vote on what franchises we cover. We'll put up some polls. We haven't really figured out our tier subscription thing kind of yet, so there's not like a set amount. I'm thinking of just doing one tier that kind of gives you access to all of our bonus content. But the first episode of our bonus content is going to air next Wednesday, and it is going to be a part of our ongoing series called Watch List Wednesday, where me and Josh just talk about one film, usually a little artsier films, though I know we plan on breaking in to a little sillier ones in the future, but they're a little bit shorter episodes, usually kind of clocking around an hour, and the basis is just me and Josh kind of recommending each other movies that the other hasn't really seen or hasn't seen in a long time, or just something we really want to kind of revisit. We're a little loose with kind of what we do on that. So we'll be talking about Being John Malkovich, and as sort of a little treat, a little taste of what we will be putting out on our bonus content on Patreon, I thought that it would be kind of a fun idea to release the first episode of Watch List Wednesday, us talking about Being John Malkovich, all on all of our platforms. So you guys will be able to get the first episode for free on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever we upload our episodes, wherever you guys like to listen to us. Yeah, so definitely do that. And that obviously goes into our plugs, which, you can find us Franchise Deep Dive on any of our, anywhere you get your podcasts. We upload on my YouTube channel, Former Film Student, so if you like to listen on YouTube, we're over here. But if you like Spotify or Apple Podcasts, we are also on those two platforms as well. And that kind of, Franchise Deep Dive. I didn't say it, but Franchise Deep Dive will be the name on Patreon as well. So, check us out over there. We're not going to really charge a lot, but if you guys want to give us a little bit of extra money, it would help. It would help fund the show. It would help us be able to give you guys more content, and all around would be beneficial for us. So if you guys like listening to us, definitely subscribe over there. But that's it for me.
Yep, appreciate you guys listening. Had a blast talking about Twilight. Can't wait to get into the next 3 films next episode. But again, the Patreon, kind of gets you an opportunity to get away from the franchise format. Goes into just individual films, so it gives a little bit more creative freedom to do different types of movies where we're not just doing series. Yeah. But again, the more we see a kickoff in it, maybe we can add some more tiers. We're kind of just playing around with different levels to work on. So if we see it gets some traction, there might be more in the future that you can subscribe to or gain access to. But again,
absolutely,
always appreciate you guys listening and giving any feedback that you do. Stay tuned, and I hope you guys enjoy Watch List Wednesday. Yeah, so as Jake was saying, every other Wednesday you'll get an episode opposite of when we usually air our franchise deep dive episodes every Tuesday. So just stay tuned for that. Look out for any new content, and like Jake said, he's coming up with other ideas that we could put in for additional content. But always appreciate you guys' support. Feel free to shoot us an email if you ever have any suggestions for us or any ways we can get better. We always want to improve for you guys. But yeah, that's all we have. On behalf of Jake and myself, thanks for tuning in.